My entitled siblings are convinced that my mom has a secret stash of money, as they're now pressuring my mom to give up her house so that they could split it solely between the two of them. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with this that I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my brother, my sister, and their spouses feel as if mom should give them her house and property and then move into an old folks home, or even just buy them a house. Now, while my mom is almost 80 years old, she has all of her faculties about her. She is well educated and very spry, but it's mostly my sister and brother causing all the trouble. A few years ago, my stepdad passed away. He was a great guy and good to my mom. My older brother and my younger sister are convinced that mom has secret money that was left to her when my stepdad passed away. Now, at first, they thought that she had cash hidden in the house. So they would visit her and one of them would keep her busy while the other would snoop around. Then they convinced themselves that she had a secret bank account somewhere else. But no, she doesn't. I do most of her banking and set up her accounts for autopay. She owns her house free and clear. After dad died, I orchestrated a GoFundMe to get her house paid off, and we were successful. And they don't know that I did this. They were kept out of the loop for fear that they'd pressure her into giving them some of the money, so they have no idea how she paid her house off, and only that she paid it off in some way. But they really ramped up the pressure after she paid off the house, and now they are convinced more than ever that she has a secret stash of money. But eventually, we told them about the GoFundMe for her house, hoping they would finally back off of mom, but instead they lost it. They wanted some kind of accounting of the money, and they wanted anything that was in that account turned over to them, saying they would take me to court for elder financial mistreatment. Now, she only has to pay the monthly bills, and I set up the autopay for her, so I know exactly how much money she has. Enough to live on, but not enough to have any fun. So I pay her water and cell phone bills for her, I transfer the money to her account every month, but they have each told her she needs to give them money for a down payment on a house since she refuses to give up her home of 35 years. They also say that if she won't give them any money, then she needs to give up an acre to each of them. And it's like, how are they so entitled to her money? She receives less than $4,000 a month to live on, and I cannot convince them that she doesn't have a secret bank account. The thing they do not understand is that he was not our biological father, and he didn't raise us. Mom and our stepdad married when we were all out of the house. No matter how many times I point this out, they say it doesn't matter, since they still called him dad. It's been a few years, but they still bring it up often. Mom called me last night, and she was tired and had been working hard the entire day, and yet the both of them have been calling her for the last few weeks, upping the pressure. The last time they brought it up, they talked about splitting her house and property between the two of them, and then once again mentioning her secret bank account. Now, there are 5 siblings altogether, but since the other 3, namely with houses and careers, are doing better than these two, they think they're entitled to her home and property after she passes away. But what they do not know is that she left her house and 5 acres to an animal rescue and activist group that she is very active in. And I know this because I'm the executor of the will. She's asked me not to tell them, and honestly, I can see exactly why. So seriously, how do I get them to back off of her without telling them that there's no chance in the world that they are ever going to get anything? She doesn't want them to know about her will for fear that they might bother the animal rescue activist group that she's a part of. What should I do? Honestly, the way that your siblings are acting is completely out of line. Seriously, like, these people are delusional. Maybe instead of trying to secure an inheritance that isn't there, they can get to work and figure their careers out. Like, dude, what is their problem? It is personally so obnoxious watching people act like this, especially over something that's literally not even there. So my only real suggestion is maybe telling your mom to just not answer the phone anymore, because this kind of behavior is super weird, and you guys do not deserve to deal with this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My former boss disputes my work history 6 months after I left, as he literally reports me on LinkedIn, even though the history that I gave was completely accurate. So I got some revenge by filling his inbox up with spam, ruining his work and home life in a way that he will never recover from. Here's how I did it. A few years ago, I was working at a corporate job and had a very significant death in the family, my grandfather, that I needed to take time off to go handle. I needed to help with the estate and honestly just grieve the loss of my grandfather, because after all, we were very, very close to each other. I asked my manager to use emergency PTO and it was denied. I asked to go on FMLA instead and it was also denied, saying that grandparents didn't qualify. I then told him I wouldn't be able to come in for at least a couple of weeks while I flew down to Florida to attend the funeral and help with the estate. But they told me that if I did that, I would be terminated. So they terminated me and even had the gall to offer me 2 weeks of severance in exchange for signing an NDA, a gag order, and an indemnity clause, which means I would not be able to sue them. I wouldn't be able to talk smack feedback about them or others online? I mean, I think you get the idea. And of course, I completely refused. That conversation took place on August 1st. On my LinkedIn profile, I listed that I worked there from my start date to the beginning of August, but the company dated my termination for the 31st of July, and they said this had to do with benefits or something like that. Well, fast forward to January, and I was up early with my 6-week-old newborn, and it's there that I got a LinkedIn notification that my former manager viewed my profile. A few minutes later, I got an email from LinkedIn that my employment at that company was being disputed, and he disputed the difference between the 31st of July and August 1st. LinkedIn ignored my dispute of the report and removed the company experience from my profile entirely. Not to mention that when I did repost the experience, it would no longer be verified by LinkedIn because I would have to verify through a company email address, which I no longer had. I mean, the absolute gall of this guy. And seriously, you're thinking about me 6, almost 7 months later? So I decided to get some petty revenge. I found his home address online, I had his personal cell phone number in my phone, and I also found his personal and work email address. And it's here that I signed him up for as much spam as I could possibly find. And not just that, I went to every morning company and real estate agency in the area asking to be put in contact with an agent saying that I was looking for a house for $800,000 and for moving companies to give quotes for a cross-country move. I gave those websites every contact information I had for him. And this is something that would excite just about anyone getting that kind of sales lead. Well, fast forward, and a former coworker in the same department told me that his phone was blowing up for days. And we're talking both his work phone and his personal cell phone. And his role was client-facing, so he couldn't just ignore the phone calls. Now, I don't know if he ever figured out that it was me who did that, but those calls would have started pouring in within an hour of his report to LinkedIn, which honestly is the least I can do for this scumbag. Good for you for getting back at your boss. This is so stupid. He seriously went on LinkedIn and said, sorry, but you didn't work here until August 1st. You only worked here until July 31st. Sorry, but that's the way it is. Like, seriously, this guy's obsessed with you. Like, what's going on right now? You mean to tell me that this guy literally went out of his way to report you to LinkedIn by being like, this is being disputed because he's lying? Like, dude, what's your problem? Like, seriously, what's going on right now? That is so ignorant because it's just not the truth. Because in reality, the original poster had to do this to go, I don't know, grieve the loss of his grandfather. You know, the guy that literally died in his family. And the boss is like, no, you can't go see them. If you do, you're gonna get terminated. Like, what a loser, dude. Seriously. So this really was the least you could do for this guy. Because in my opinion, he deserved way worse than getting spammed. Am I the jerk for holding firm on my boundaries with my roommate, as I'm literally just trying to figure out our living situation in a way that respects the both of us as best as we can? Because things are getting messy and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I'm moving into a new apartment in a few weeks with a roommate. The apartment has 2 bedrooms and the rent is $2,600. One room is a little bigger and has more closet space, and my roommate and I are trying to figure out who gets which room and how to split rent in a way that feels fair. Now, she's saying she wants the bigger room and that it should only be $50 more than the other one, but she also wants to put her desk in the living room to work there. I already told her I'm not comfortable with that because I would feel like I'm disturbing her if I needed to cook or just relax in the shared space while she needs some quiet or is in a meeting or something like that. I also told her that I think the bigger room should cost $100 more because it has more space and a larger closet. She then came back and said she thinks the rent should only be about a $50 difference, and she really wants to have a desk in the living room and maybe use more of the shared hallway storage than me as well. Now, to me, that just feels really imbalanced and is way more than I would try to ask for personally. I mean, she's getting a bigger room, an extra separate workspace outside of her room, and taking over more of the shared space, all for barely more rent. My 2 biggest priorities are, for one, having a decent sized room where I can study privately since I'm starting an intense dental hygiene program, and 2, feeling like I can use the shared space without walking on eggshells or constantly worrying about being too loud. So I suggested 2 different things. My first option is that she takes the smaller room, we split the rent evenly, and she uses the hallway storage to make up for the closet size difference and put her desk in the living room. The second option is she takes the larger room, pays $100 more, or just $50 more if I get the single parking lot spot, and the shared spaces stay neutral, meaning there would be no desk, and we get to split the hallway storage equally, and everyone can use the space whenever. I'm not being stubborn about the money, and I honestly would be happy to pay whatever I need to if the common spaces were shared evenly, and I had the larger room. I just don't want to end up in a situation where I feel resentful or like I don't have space to breathe. I've tried to compromise, but it feels like she's pushing for everything she wants without really taking my needs into account. So am I the jerk for holding firm to these compromise options and telling her no? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm out of line. Okay, in my opinion, you absolutely are not the jerk here. Seriously, you guys are living together, which in my opinion really does mean that yeah, you should probably be working working together to make sure this works for the both of you. And the fact that she's pushing so hard to be like, no, this is the way I want it, that's really obnoxious in my opinion and just completely over the line. And if anything, it would almost make me tempted to find another roommate of some kind, because this sounds super obnoxious. Like, I would not want to deal with this. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because what you're asking, in my opinion, is super reasonable. Am I the jerk for supposedly ruining my vacation with my boyfriend and I, all because I was nervous about driving in a country I've never been to before? Because right now he's kind of blaming me for everything, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my boyfriend and I are on vacation, and we decided to rent a car as it was his idea. Now, it's important to note that he doesn't have a valid driving license for the country we're in, so the only possible way to drive around is me being the only driver for the whole vacation trip. Now, I usually really dislike driving, but of course I do it anyways out of necessity. But driving in a foreign country with no one else who could take my place in case of an emergency seemed a bit too much for me. And also, I'm really young, so I don't have a lot of experience. For reference, I'm a 23-year-old female and my boyfriend is 27. So he tried to convince me, and after some arguing, I finally gave in to his request. And I mean, everybody knows that sometimes you have to make a compromise in a relationship. The problem is that once we arrived, I realized it was more difficult than I thought. I got really nervous, and I also acted really rude towards him, all while I was driving, because I was literally stressed out, which made me feel really bad. I said I was sorry and everything, but the trip just kept getting more and more stressful, with me having to drive for hours to reach the different places he booked, and getting so tired both physically and mentally, as I'm not used to long drives in the slightest. And because he doesn't drive, he literally couldn't even take my place. But now he's telling me about how I'll never go anywhere with this attitude of mine, and how surprised he is that I'm so adverse to trying new things, and how I shouldn't go abroad if I'm so uncomfortable with getting out of my comfort zone. All of this because I got so stressed out with all the driving that I needed to do. I feel like I made some mistakes and I could have behaved better while driving, but I also feel like he doesn't realize how demanding he's being and how bad his words hurt me. I told him that I compromised with him and decided to rent a car, but he could have compromised too and booked places that weren't so far away from one another. He criticized me a lot for the whole vacation, basically telling me that I'm not made for the life that I would like to live because of this car stuff. And he's actually referencing me studying abroad and all that. I also suggested that we bring the car back to the rental company earlier and find another solution, but he said absolutely not. That since I said yes, I should be driving around until the end of the trip. Now, at this point, I don't care who's wrong or who's right. I just want to salvage what's left of the vacation and stop fighting, because right now I don't know if I'm the jerk and I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I would never apologize to this man ever again, but secondly, it looks like his true colors are finally coming out on vacation. Like, this guy literally is like, no, we can't bring it back to the car company because you agreed to do this. That means you're gonna drive around the entire time. And my only response would be to say, like, no, not if you're gonna act like that. Like, this is some weird narcissistic behavior. You don't owe this guy an apology. He's being so stupid. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. This guy's being a massive weirdo, and the fact that he's trying to put this on you, in my opinion, is so stupid, because you literally have done nothing wrong. Am I the jerk for not letting my partner come with me on my vacation after he started to try and change my plans that are very strict? Here's what's going on. Okay, I'm a 30-year-old female, and I've had this vacation plan since I was in middle school. It centers around a movie and book series I'm in love with, and I am a massive fan. I have a vacation booked to see the filming locations, I'm staying in some of the filming locations, and basically I have a very strict itinerary. This has been a dream of mine forever, and I'm unwilling to compromise on a single instance of it. It sounds crazy, but I had a rough home life, and this series was my escape, and now that I have adult money, I will see this to fruition. Now, my partner, who is a 30-year-old male, wants to come along with me and is willing to pay for anything he also wants to do. Now, I love him, he is great, and I'd be willing for him to come along. However, he does not like this series, and it wouldn't be fun for him, and he also wants to add some national parks and other things to the trip. But if we did that, it would screw over my time-sensitive itinerary since it's planned for every day exactly. I told him if he comes along, everything he wants to do is on his own time, as my itinerary is what I'm sticking to exactly. I have this week planned to the minute, and I will regret if I miss a single thing. Well, he's now upset because he feels this defeats the point of him coming along. He wants to spend that time with me, and he's worried about me flying solo as a woman across the country. He wants to be there in case the rental car breaks down or something happens so that I'm not anxious and alone trying to solve my problems. Now, I get those concerns. I think they're valid. I mean, I do have anxiety after all, and his desire to support me is very sweet. There would be a 4-hour time difference between us if something did happen, which is another concern of his. He feels I'm being very concrete on this and is frustrated by my lack of willingness to budge on it. I told him it's no different than if he wanted to go to New Zealand to see the Lord of the Rings stuff, and I tried to plan and other stuff that wasn't Lord of the Rings related on days where he was wanting to visit Hobbitville or whatever the Shire village is called. I told him if he wants to come, he can either do his own thing, follow my itinerary, or just not come at all. I told him honestly, I want to go alone. I want to go on this trip because I want to be with someone who I know will appreciate it as much as I will, which is me. And now he's upset because he feels like I'm not seeing the big picture and I don't want to spend that time together. So honestly, am I being unreasonable here? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, seriously, your boyfriend's being super weird in my opinion. And the fact that he's trying to be like, oh yeah, you can't do this because you have anxiety. What if the car breaks down? What if you're flying and something happens? It's like, dude, your girlfriend is 30 years old. Like, what's going on right now? I'm pretty sure she can rent a car by herself and fly solo, no problem. And honestly, for the original poster, I completely get it. I understand where you're coming from, where you're like, look, this is super important and I have an itinerary I want to follow. Like, this has been a dream of yours for a long time and you don't want anything getting in the way. And it sounds like your partner would absolutely get in the way. He's trying to derail this trip you've waited for a long time. And that is unacceptable in my opinion. Like, seriously, that's not okay. And the fact that he doesn't see that is really annoying as well. So no, you're not the jerk for being picky about this. You guys can go on another vacation if he's so extremely upset about this. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to plan for like a year from now another trip that you guys can do together, or sooner if it's really bothering him. But it really seems like he's trying to like hijack your vacation, and that just sounds super annoying. And in my opinion, that makes him more of the jerk than you ever will be. Am I the jerk for calling the police and reporting my friends after my gaming console went missing from my house? Because my 3 friends are the only people who have been in my house for the past 3 months. And despite the fact that I've tried to get them to come clean in some kind of way, they still are in complete denial, refusing to give me any information about my missing console, and even going as far as saying that they'll call the police on me if I contact them. And at this point, I'm super frustrated and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 33-year-old male and I was gone out of state at the end of May of 2025. I had entrusted a friend of mine to watch my dogs while I was gone, and I told him that I only wanted him to go check on the dogs, clean up whatever mess they made, and then go. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this friend Aaron. Well, I have a doorbell camera, and every time he was there, which was like 4 times in total, he brought his friend who we will call Chad. I texted Aaron and I asked why Chad was there too, and Aaron told me that his car wasn't starting, and he didn't want to walk and he needed a ride, and Chad didn't want to wait in the car. Well, Aaron and Chad had been over at my place before, so I just shrugged it off and I let it be. Well, a few weeks ago, another friend had been staying with me, and we'll call him Nate for the sake of the story, and after something happened with his mode of transportation that had broken down, I offered him a place to stay and he graciously obliged and said thank you. He also said when the time comes he'll get a job, sign a lease with me, and then pay the rent, which I thought was great, so I agreed. Well, cut to Wednesday and I wanted to play a game on my handheld console. I keep it on my entertainment center in the living room. I went to go grab it, and the system, the dock, the power cable, and HDMI cable were all gone. I didn't take them with me on my trip, and even if I did, I would not have brought the dock, the power cord, and the HDMI cables. It's a USB-C charging port, and I have plenty of those just lying around. I call the manufacturer of the console, and they find the serial number and they give it to me. I asked if they could somehow see any information on when it was last signed in, or anything like that, and he said that the system showed a factory reset within the last 7 days. So there's a high probability it was wiped and just completely sold. So I reached out to Aaron, Chad, and Nate, and of course, none of them had even seen or even knew that I had one. And that part is highly unlikely because the console is right in plain view in the living room. Well, jump cut to me calling the police, filing a report, and giving them Aaron, Chad, and Nate's name and their phone numbers. I then get a message yesterday from Aaron asking if I did call the police and file a report. And you know what? I told him yes, and that I won't be saying anything further. Well, he understood and really wanted to help me find it. I then get a message this morning from Chad saying, "How dare you accuse me of stealing your crap? Aaron and I are together and you can't stand it. I know you want him, but I won't let you. Stay away from me, Aaron, and Nate. If you so much as text even hello or good morning, I will call the police and say that you're bothering us. Stay away from me." And for the record, I have my own significant other and I definitely don't want him. I said nothing to him afterwards, and I screenshotted his message and also Aaron's message about the console. And at this point, Nate has also blocked me on everything and hasn't stopped by to pick up his belongings from my place. Now, there have only been 3 people that have been in my apartment in the last 2 months besides my significant other, but we are always together. So seriously, am I the jerk for the way this all transpired, or is there something else that I could have done? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. Okay, I gotta be completely honest with you, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, it's clearly been Aaron, Chad, or Nate, like one of them clearly stole it, and like they easily could have solved this by just giving it back. They could have given the console back and that would have solved everything. But instead, they're trying to be like, I can't believe you did this. Don't ever call us again or we will call the police. And you know for a fact that's an empty kind of promise. They're not gonna do anything anything. They're just pissed off that you caught them in the act of stealing your crap, and now they're gonna have to account for it when the cops show up. Which, by the way, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. It literally had to have been one of those three people. They're the only people that had access to your house, and you have cameras around. So you clearly would have known if someone came into your house, or you probably would have noticed if someone, like, I don't know, had taken something out of your house through like a window. Clearly a cat burglar didn't like break in through a window, so it's obviously got to be one of those three. So no, you're not the jerk. I honestly would have done the exact same thing because your friends are acting incredibly sketchy, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest.
I exposed my dad as a fake Special Forces veteran to everyone he knows. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This all started several years ago during my parents' divorce, but the finale took place this November. First, some backstory. Growing up, my father was an emotionally abusive piece of crap who got off on religious authority and controlling every aspect of our lives. We were kept so isolated and made to fear the police/CPS to the point where we thought it was normal. After I went off to college, my little brother came out as gay, and my father started beating him, unbeknownst to my mother and I. When my brother threatened to tell my mom about this, my father kicked the then 15-year-old out of the house. My mother was understandably horrified by this and tried to get my father to see sense, at which point he started hitting her. Long story somewhat short, I got my mom out. My brother went to live with friends and divorce proceedings were started. It was nasty. No one wanted to go to the police. My father was friends with the local small-town cops. And thankfully, my jerk-faced sperm donor agreed to a no-fault divorce. While my mom was cleaning out her stuff from the house under the watchful eye of her amazing co-workers, she found my father's discharge papers. This is where everything started. You see, my father spent his entire 25-year marriage telling everyone that he was a Special Forces vet who had been awarded a Purple Heart and Bronze Star, which were both coincidentally destroyed in a house fire along with his uniforms and paperwork. But here were his discharge papers, and they clearly stated he was given an other than honorable discharge after 4 years in the motor pool. Not wanting to be seen as the vindictive ex-wife, my mom quietly took the papers and didn't tell anyone for years after my father moved away to a new state to join a militia. When she finally told me while tipsy this past year, we hatched a plan. Over the next few months, we snooped on social media to make a list of his former and current employers, family, major friends that we knew of, and his church. She enlisted our extended family and I my college friends from all over the country. In November, we each purchased Veterans Day cards and wrote out messages such as Stolen Valor, Motor Pool, Pretender, etc. Everyone attached a photocopy of the page listing his discharge. And then we sent them on the same day from the nearest major cities with the return address listed as his current church. They arrived on or around Veterans Day from Atlanta, Orlando, Washington, D.C., New York, St. Louis, Kansas City, Seattle, Portland, LA, Houston, Ontario, London, and Edinburgh. Immediately, my mother was inundated with calls and emails from people who had no idea and couldn't believe he was like that and were sorry for not believing her and my brother. My jerk-faced dad sent a nasty email implying horrible things if he ever could prove my mother did this, which she forwarded straight to her lawyer along with the nasty letters from his more vocal supporters. Now, most people in our hometown look at her as the battered spouse who walked out with her head held high, rather than that tramp who divorced such a godly man. My little brother has no idea we did this. He didn't want anyone to confront my father. But later, he told me he got a random call from our old pastor apologizing for kicking him out of the church over my father's lies. And I can finally sleep well at night with the knowledge that his reputation is in shambles by our hands. Revenge truly is a dish best served cold. But that jerk deserved it. Yeah, I'd say this guy deserves everything he got, and then some. It never seems to fail that people who are jerks at home like to put on this front to the rest of society, that they're some kind of hero or something. In this case, apparently he was viewed as a godly man and bragged about being an ex-Special Forces vet and having a Purple Heart and Bronze Star and all these things, when in reality he was just a piece of crap. Goes to show you never know what's going on behind closed doors. My entitled mother begs me for money despite just buying a new house and car. A little backstory. My mom, who's on SSDI, top tier, almost $2,800 a month, has a very hard time budgeting. Last year, she decided to sell my grandparents' house in South Oregon to move back to the Seattle area. She got the house by having my grandma with dementia change the will and cut out her two siblings, my uncle and aunt. And after my grandma passed, the house and all the savings and belongings went to my mom. So she sells the house, and instead of buying a reasonable home, since she has limited mobility and a bad prescription drug addiction and falls often, she buys herself and her 3 cats a 4,000 square foot home in a gated community. There was literally no money left over from the sale and acquisition of the home. I had to help pay for a moving van and helpers. Before this, she had a settlement from a slip and fall lawsuit of roughly $50K, which she instantly rolls into a brand new 2018 Toyota Highlander. She had been left my grandmother's 2009 Aspen SUV, but the gas mileage was not good enough. Then she backs into a tree and busts a taillight on the new car a few months after buying it, goes to the dealership to fix a taillight, and decides she needs a brand new 2019 fully loaded Highlander with a tow package. And she has nothing to tow, so this is a mystery. She trades in her 2018 with 5,000 miles on it and takes out a $35,000 car loan. And this is on a fixed income, and she always has money trouble. So now we're at like $80,000 worth of car at this point. Excellent. She's constantly begging my brother, sister, and I for money. We're 38, my brother, 36, me, and 27, my sister, and all trying to establish ourselves in our lives, careers, and financial security. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 young kids. We live off my husband's income as an apprentice tradesman, and we have to be very frugal. We qualify to live in low-income housing, and I find ways to be resourceful, like donating our time and vehicle to help a local food bank, so we're able to get some food as well as help the community. We don't own a home or brand new fancy cars. And if you take away rent and do the math for just 2 adults, we live on less than her monthly SSDI. Yet every month, she has a sad story about how she can't afford X or Y. She finally canceled her $175 a month TV plan. I've asked her more times than I can count to please not bring up money matters with me, and I've offered to help her budget, but she refuses the help and only wants money. Well, she brought up the money the other day when she came up to our apartment to visit the grandkids. But really, she came to pilfer the food bank transportation we do every Sunday before we drop off at the food bank. This time, she's saying she didn't have enough money to pick up her prescriptions. This is just after she told me she gets her prescriptions in the mail. I think she has a drug-induced dementia from the 15 years of benzos and opiates. I told her I could spare $15 for gas money, but that was all. I explained we're a family of 4 living on 1 income, and we have a tight budget. I reminded her that she's had plenty of opportunity to save or spend her money more wisely, so she takes the $15 and goes. I get a call the next day of her crying, saying that the way I brought up her poor money choices was terribly upsetting, pretty much making me out to be the villain and her the victim. This self-victimizing routine is her go-to. It's exhausting because I've done so much for her. I put my life on hold for 5 years after college to be her full-time caretaker. She fell and needed a hip replacement and got hooked on opiates. I couldn't hold down a job or any healthy relationships because I was constantly being called back home to get this or that for her, take her to her doctor's appointments or whatever. I could literally write a novel in all the ways I've helped her. Screw her for trying to make me out to be the bad guy because I don't give her money to get extra prescriptions to fuel her addiction. Screw her for even putting it out there and begging my family for money when she has so much. And lastly, screw her for never respecting my boundaries, which I need to preserve my well-being. After her sob story phone call, I was upset, and it took me a few hours to get my head on straight. I wasn't a good mom to my kids at that time. So to be a better mom to my kids, I'm putting old mom in timeout. I need a break from that entitled jerk. No, original poster, I don't blame you. You do what you need to do. Sometimes you just need to cut people off. It sounds like our poster's mother has really never had to worry about money because everyone keeps giving it to her. She clearly doesn't understand the value of a dollar if she's pulling all kinds of moves like this. The car switch in particular is one that I just totally cannot get behind. And $175 for TV a month? Come on, just get Netflix. Maybe if she stops getting help and actually has to budget because she now has no choice, maybe she'll learn to have a little bit more respect for how much you help her. When taking advantage of young employees goes terribly wrong. Buckle up, guys. This is a long but oh so satisfying story. Once upon a time, there was this HVAC subcontracting company who did small-scale projects for the local municipality. Enter me, an 18-year-old girl fresh out of high school looking for a job. I got hired at this place as an administrative assistant with no experience whatsoever. The person who interviewed me was this horrendous jerk of a human being named Erica. She did not work for the company, she was just the owner's mistress. This becomes important later. This was to be the start of a very long and painful experience. but one that I got my revenge for in the most spectacular ways possible. My boss was this very tall, very intimidating man from Ghana named Dave. He was huge, like 6'7". His voice was deep, and he was quite an intimidating man. Despite this, he was a very calm and mild-mannered person who rarely ever raised his voice. He did a lot of his shady stuff with a smile and a tip of the hat, like a true gentleman. He owned the company and considered himself to be successful, but he was by far the shadiest person I've ever worked for in my life. I didn't realize at the time that many of the things he would have me do were illegal. Very illegal. Now, a very funny and ironic side note here is that both Dave and his disgusting pile of crap side piece Erica were very, very religious. As in, I have a master's degree in theology and will remind you every chance I get religious. Dave was married and had a wife and 3 kids back in Ghana, but he had his little plaything Erica here in the States to keep him entertained. His wife was not aware of Erica's existence and she did not consent to this arrangement. Now, one would assume that since Erica was the one who interviewed me that she works for the company, right? Wrong. This jerk had a very good job with the US government and would regularly email me, or more like micromanage, from her government email address regarding my work back at the office. She was located in an entirely different state and would visit every few weeks to bang Dave and call it work. It was during one of these trips that she hired me to work there. Erica was a master at mental torture. She was nasty, rude, and would dial back all of her evil ways when Dave was around, so he believed she was the perfect angel. She was well into her 50s and would regularly bully me, an 18-year-old girl. I lived an hour and a half away by train from the office and had to be in at 8 a.m. I was also in college, so I would go straight from the office at 4 p.m. to take classes until 10 p.m. She would call at 7:55 a.m. sporadically, and if I wasn't there yet, would leave a message asking why I was late. She would always make snide remarks at me when I needed clarification on something, like, "Do you speak English or do you just not get it?" Mind you, I was an 18-year-old given the job of an HR director. I was in charge of all office operations, payroll, union benefits, insurance certificates, IRS forms, bank accounts, child support claims, unemployment claims, the works. He had one 18-year-old running his entire business. I'm by nature a very organized, punctual, and technologically savvy person, and they took full advantage of that. There are some super illegal / shady things he had me doing, such as changing dates on insurance certificates to make them valid even though they weren't, paying union workers off the books, falsifying payroll documents, using literally any method to avoid the IRS, such as opening new bank accounts, putting things in his wife's name and things like that, falsifying approval signatures for projects, and pacifying vendors that he owed money to, while sweet-talking them into sending us more equipment without paying, along with so many other things that I can't think of at the moment. He never gave me the context of what was going on when giving me these random assignments. It wasn't until later on that I started to put 2 and 2 together to figure out that most of what he was doing was shady. I worked at this place for a total of 3 years, and regularly had mental breakdowns in the office because of the sheer amount of work, bullying, and pressure from Erica and Dave. I'm talking ugly crying while doing my work because I didn't have time to just cry. Anyone in their right mind would have quit. But I was in college and got paid under the table, which kept me on my health insurance and able to pay for my textbooks and schooling with no debt. I went to a cheap city school, so I didn't have to take out any loans, and not going into debt was more important than anything in the world to me. I would have slaved for as long as it took as far as I was concerned. Side note, during this time, I hired a lovely young woman named Lily to help me make copies and answer the phone while I ran the entire company. She was a student and around my age and had great work ethic. Erica would bully her too. So we had a great friendship and a mutual burning hatred for this creature that calls herself Erica. She helps me exact my revenge on these cretins later on by giving me documents, information, and whatever I needed, since she was still logged into the company email long after she left. Now, I have stories for days about the various screwed up things they did to Dave's various co-contractors, his employees, and myself included. But this story's already long enough, so I'll tell you about the time Dave told me to take a vacation. You look stressed. He sent me on vacation with 2 weeks' pay and said a lot of pleasantries about how hard I work for him, how he couldn't run his business without me, and yada yada yada. It was all lip service because when I returned the Monday after my 2-week vacation, I see some guy sitting at my desk using my computer. Of course, I figured it was a mistake or he was a new engineer using my computer for drawings. Well, tough luck for me because the next minute I hear Erica and Dave walking to the front office where my desk was located. I had no idea Erica would be there. and she traumatized me so much that my body would physically react to her presence. Heart racing, sweating, anxiety, everything. They took me into the back in Dave's office and said something along the lines of, "You're fired." To put the icing on this steaming crap pile of a cake, Erica made up some convoluted excuse as to why they couldn't give me my money I was owed from working overtime the week before I left. I saved up my 2 weeks' pay, so it wasn't the end of the world. But oh boy, did that last bit peeve me to no end. I stewed for 2 more weeks while I finished up finals. I kept going over the various scenarios in my head where I was belittled, talked down to, disrespected, shamed for not being religious, and taken advantage of. These jerks have to pay. And so I started my beautiful waltz of revenge with the IRS. I texted Lily and told her to start looking for a job ASAP because it was about to go down. She replied that she was already putting in notice since she got a gig at the hospital. Perfect. I began by filling out all the whistleblower paperwork and memorized all of his information, including his tax ID number, so that was a breeze. Off to the mail that went. My next stop was the Department of Labor. Same routine. Filled out the forms, sent it off with a smile. Next stop, the labor union. I sent an anonymous letter detailing how he was avoiding paying benefits by hiring union guys under the table. But wait, there's more. I then proceeded to sign up Erica's government email address to every single marketing, adult entertainment, and spam site I could find. All of them ranging from very niche adult entertainment to discounted Ray-Bans from China. Then I contacted the insurance agency whose certificates he had me alter and told them not to work with him anymore because of what he was doing. I stopped myself from making copies of Erica's mortgage application and tossing them off a building because that could be traced back to me and would be illegal. I'm glad I didn't do that though, as the universe had plans for her. We'll get to that in a bit. I sat and waited for a few weeks, and slowly the responses from various agencies trickled in. Many violations were filed against him, and various liens were placed on every single asset he had. He no longer had any insurance, so the major contractors would no longer work with him. In less than 6 months, the company went kaput. Fast forward 6 years. I'm sitting in my apartment enjoying some fine wine when I get an email from my old AOL account that I haven't used in years. It's from Erica, but her personal email address. And I see it's a mass email to everyone in her contacts list. It read something like this. "Please help. I'm stuck in Italy and have been robbed of everything including my money and passport. If anyone here could help me, I would really appreciate it. I'm stranded here with nothing and don't know what to do." Cue my hysterical laughter for probably 10 whole minutes. And yes, I did reply back to her email. My reply was short and simple. LOL, is this real? And that's the story of why jerks shouldn't take advantage of young employees. Good job to our original poster for making sure that this jerk got what was coming to him. I'm sure a lot of people would walk away from this just to be glad to be done with this terrible experience. But our original poster put in the time to make sure that these jerks don't ever get to do this to anyone else ever again, along with exposing them for taking advantage of pretty much everyone else they were in business with as well. People who run their business like this, really shady-like, love to hire young people to do these important jobs because they know that they don't know what they're doing and don't know any better. It literally is just taking advantage of someone who doesn't understand what they're doing. But this story goes to show that just because they're young doesn't mean they can't completely screw you over. The only thing we didn't get the follow-up on was what happened with his wife. I feel like that really would have rounded out the story if she got to find out what was going on between the boss and Erica. Maybe we can just assume that little tidbit for ourselves. My entitled sister-in-law thinks I'm the jerk for not letting her miracle baby be the flower girl at my wedding. I'm a 27-year-old female, and my older brother and sister-in-law, both in their mid-30s, just welcomed their first child a year and a half ago, after years of trying. After many failed attempts, sister-in-law was told that she wouldn't be able to conceive due to a medical condition she has, and they finally got pregnant. Since having my niece, the baby has been the center of attention at every family event we've had since she was born. Birthdays, weddings, family get-togethers, you name it. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my niece, but it can get to be a little too much when my sister-in-law goes on and on about how long they tried to conceive, complications they've had, miscarriages they've had, etc. Like a little too much info. Many family members have commented on how it's a little bit excessive, but no one has said anything because they don't want to sound like a jerk. Anyway, I'm getting married in the spring, and my brother and sister-in-law approached me last weekend about having my niece be the flower girl. Now, my fiance, 35-year-old male, has 2 children, 10-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl, from his previous marriage. His son is one of his groomsmen, while his daughter had asked to be the flower girl when we told them the news that we were getting married a year ago, as it's something she always wanted to do. So, of course, we said yes. So I explained this to my sister-in-law when she asked about my niece. She asked if my stepdaughter can just carry my niece with her. I said, I don't think she'd be comfortable with that considering she's 6. She then asked why I can't give that role to my niece and allow herself to carry my niece down the aisle as the flower girl. I said no because I already promised my stepdaughter. She then started going off about how my lack of effort to incorporate her niece is disgusting her. I should honor her in some way since I know how long and hard they tried for my niece. Now, I may sound like a jerk for this, but I got kinda fed up and snapped and said, incorporate my niece how? By the time the wedding comes around, she'll be around 2 years old. The entire family already knows your story about how long and hard you guys tried for her. What more do you expect me to do to honor her? She started crying and said that clearly I don't love my one and only niece and I'm letting her down. I said, of course I love my niece, and obviously she's going to be involved in pictures and stuff. But I'm not going to let my stepdaughter down by giving my niece a role she's too young to remember anyway. Well, now my sister-in-law and my brother are peeved with me for not letting my niece be flower girl, and are running around telling the rest of the family that I don't love my niece. My mom had been trying to stay neutral, but thinks my stepdaughter would understand if I explained to her that I need to give that role to my niece. I'm firm in my decision though, and my fiance is thankful that I didn't let his daughter down. So what do you think? Am I being the jerk? Absolutely not. You are perfectly right to stick to your guns. Every parent thinks that their child is a little angel, and I get it, they worked really hard for her. But yeah, after a certain point, the story just gets repetitive. Not to mention, this role has already been promised to a 6-year-old girl. This mother needs to take a step back and look at how she's acting and realize that there are other children in the world that also want to be happy, that might actually remember this event, and that she's taking that away from a 6-year-old. I think that should answer the question right there on who's being the jerk. Scammer scams me at a gas station, so I set him up in a sting operation. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. One night, I was on my way home from work and needed to stop at a gas station. This gas station was right off a very busy, tolled interstate highway and had an attached convenience store, as most do. It was dark out when I pulled up. I started pumping my gas and was headed to the store when another customer stopped me. His truck was at the pump across from me. He went on a sob story about how he just got a ticket and not having money to pay the tolls, being completely out of gas and needing to get home since he accidentally took all of his infant son formula with him when he left. There was a woman with him looking through a diaper bag while he related his tale of woe. And right when he mentions the formula, she yells, "Yeah, all the formula is in here. What were we thinking? We really need to get back." She said her wallet should be in the bag somewhere, but after dumping the contents inside the truck cabin, she lamented that it wasn't there. So yeah, obviously they were looking for me to give them money. For some stupid reason, I decide to give them the benefit of the doubt. I go into the store, take out $20 from the ATM and give it to them. In retrospect, this was such a textbook example of a stranded driver scam, but I guess I was really naive. But then instead of just thanking me for the money, this brazen jerk responds, "Thanks, but we really need another 20 to make it home. Any way you could get any more?" He also promised he'd mail the money back to me if I gave him my name, address, and phone number. At that point, I begin to regret giving him anything as all the red flags are registering in my mind at once. Both of these people were very unhygienic. Greasy hair, very poor teeth, and dirty clothes. The man's pupils were dilated a lot more than would be expected under the bright lights of the gas station, and he was especially twitchy. Likewise, the woman was pacing around, muttering to herself in feigned concern. So yeah, they were probably both high. Also, looking at the contents of the diaper bag sprawled across their truck's interior, there was plenty of trash but no baby formula. I thought to myself, if I'm gonna ruin these people's night, I needed to be sure. So I agree to get more money, but first ask him, "Can I see the citation you got? My cousin is a state trooper and could probably take care of it for you. I just need some of the information on it." As I jot down his license plate number on my phone, he checks his pockets before saying, I have no idea what I did with it." It's okay, I'll just pay it, no big deal. So you don't have money for gas, but paying more than $100 on a traffic ticket is no big deal. I call bull. I also now noticed that the state of his license plate didn't match up with his story. Peeved at myself, I'm making my way back into the store and the wheels in my head are spinning. How can I get back at this jerk? Have them kicked out? Nah, then they'll just go to another gas station and victimize someone else. Call the police? They might not get here in time. I'm a few feet from the door when genius strikes. I turn and call over to him. If you want, you can take my Easy Pass for the tolls. I really don't need it anymore. It's right on the dashboard. The door should be unlocked. Oh, that'd be great, thanks. I go into the store and pretend to use the ATM while I'm actually using an app on my phone to cancel my Easy Pass. I report their fraudulent activity to the attendant and hurry back outside. I told the man I couldn't take any more money out of my account. Sorry. He's disappointed but didn't press me. I'm grinning like a smug idiot on the inside. Get into my car, notice the transponder is gone, and drive off. I pull over a few minutes down the road and call the Easy Pass office. By some stroke of luck, they're open late that day and I'm able to speak with an actual person. I explained to her that when I got into my car just now, I noticed the transponder was gone. I already canceled it, but wanted to make sure it was all set. She confirms that it's deactivated and I can come pick up a replacement for a small fee. Not today. She asks and I tell her where and by whom I suspect the transponder was taken, giving her their license plate number and address of the gas station. She promises to pass the information along to state police. Perfect. A day or so later, the state police call me to say they've recovered my transponder and needed me to come in to give a statement. Of course I obliged. While there, I tried to pry more information on the fate of the con artists, but they weren't very forthcoming at all. Luckily, I told my cousin the story and she said she'd look into the case for me. According to the report, they got CCTV footage from the gas station showing me giving the man money and then him taking my transponder when I went back into the store. Afterwards, they got back onto the interstate and stopped at the nearest rest stop, where they presumably tried their scheme again before moving on to the next one to repeat the process. Eventually, they got off the toll road and onto a different highway. When they drove through the Easy Pass toll lane, they got flagged for not paying and were pulled over a few miles away. At this point, I was satisfied having caused them to get a $100 citation, but that wasn't the end of it. The cop notices something's up with the driver and calls for backup. When they arrived, the police officer gave the guy a field sobriety test, which he failed and was arrested. While this is going on, the woman flipped out and started running. She doesn't make it far before they catch up to her, whereupon she resists arrest. All in all, the guy was charged with DUI, not his first time either, possession, they had some drugs in the truck, theft by deception, for the $20 I gave them, and theft for the transponder. The truck was impounded and the guy got a large fine for operating without insurance, along with the more than $100 fine for not paying the toll. The woman was charged with possession and resisting arrest. She also had a record. All in all, pretty sweet revenge. They ended up only being tried for the drug-related charges, but I'm still very satisfied with that along with the fines. It gave my cousin the cop a good laugh too. Wow, our original poster set this up perfectly. If it were me, yeah, I probably would have just called the cops or something and they probably would have gotten there too late and as a result, nothing would have happened. But our poster had a plan and executed perfectly. Sometimes you need to get really creative to be able to deal with a jerk the way they need to be dealt with. I'm also surprised that people still even try this as a scam. Like, this has been around forever. Most people know about this by now. You start spewing the story of baby formula and I'm immediately not listening to a word you say. I'm sorry. Especially if your appearance is as our original poster described. But I guess they managed to get someone here or there or they wouldn't keep doing it. They did manage to get $20 from our poster after all. But I think our poster took a lot more from them in the end. The entitled tag-along on the vacation decides they don't want to pay because they're not happy with it, and as a result are left stranded. I wish this was me, but I was an observer. Years ago, a bunch of friends decided that the upcoming spring break would be ideal for a vacation. The head, we'll call him Gandalf, puts together an idea. Let's rent a beach house and drive to it. We'll all split the costs and have 2 weeks on the ocean. Who's up for this? A good-sized handful of friends are overjoyed. A 2-week vacation in a beach house with friends? We'll have a riot. It'll be a blast. We'll save tons of money. Let's do this. So Gandalf lays down the rules. All costs for travel and housing are to be split evenly. He found a couple of prospects and gives the info to friends to check out, and eventually they decide on a condo on the beach through Airbnb. People put in their deposits and the house is rented. Gandalf then rents a van to drive everyone. and off they go. Except for friend of a friend Freddie. Freddie shows up with her suitcases. Oh hey, it sounds wonderful. Can I come? I'm good for it. I'm friend of a friend Freddie, and I totally have enough money and time off for this vacation. Mind if I come along? Gandalf agrees and they all take off. The first day of driving goes well. Everyone pitches in for gas and tolls. The second day, friend of a friend Freddie grumbles a bit but pays up. They arrive at the beach house and it's better than anyone imagined. People are having the times of their lives. Everyone's having a great time. There's food, booze, sex, parties, more food, and everyone is just having a wonderful time. About 8 days in, as they're beginning to wind down, Gandalf realizes Freddie hasn't paid for any food or any booze. And once he checks his notebook, not one dime for the beachfront condo they've been staying in. He quietly takes Freddie aside and points this out. Oh, well, to be honest, I don't really have the cash right now, but I will soon. As soon as I get home and go back to work, I'll pay you then.
What? No, that's not the agreement, Freddie. It's pay as you go. What were you thinking?
Well, to be honest, Gandalf, your driving really sucked. I was carsick most of the trip, and I hate vans. Why couldn't you have rented a top-of-the-line SUV instead? And, well, since I was forced to be in this awful, undignified van, and by the way, where did you find this condo? Oh my god, this condo. I wouldn't house pigs in this condo. You know what? I'm not paying you. You've ruined my vacation with your incompetence. Gandalf is stunned and quite understandably disgusted. Freddie wanders off to the beach and Gandalf quietly approaches the group. 4 days later, Freddie leaves the beachfront condo to go meet some friends in town. The group cleans out, cleans up, jumps in the van and hits the highway, a day early and ahead of schedule. Friend of a friend Freddie ended up losing her job because she wasn't able to get back in time, since she was trapped several states away with no money and no way to get home. Oh, and all the people she called for help? Turns out she'd pulled similar stunts before, so no one was willing to loan her any cash. But I don't know, maybe it was a little overboard. Do you think it was a jerk move? Eesh, if I'm being perfectly honest, this one I'm not too sure about. I agree that friend of a friend Freddie pulled a very jerk move, but to leave them stranded states away with no money doesn't really sound like an eye for an eye. Yes, she acted entitled and very insulting, but this is next level. I might be wrong here, but I think I'm gonna have to say that yeah, this was a bit of a jerk move. You could have at least just taken her home. Either way, you're already eating the cost for this vacation anyway. This situation could have ended up very dangerous for this person. That's the only reason I can't really get behind it. My entitled sister wants to steal our deceased grandma's apartment out from under me so she can cheat on her husband easier. Hold on to your hats and get ready for a train wreck, fellas. My sister, mid-30s, is probably the worst case of entitled I've ever seen. She's always the victim, can do no wrong, and the world owes her for her imaginary suffering. This time, however, she's reached a new level. She's recently confessed to our mom and I that she's started dating someone behind her husband's back. And to be honest, her husband is a ginormous dirtbag, but just leave the guy, okay? I don't think anyone deserves to be cheated on. And even though he totally sucks, an affair doesn't constitute as some kind of just punishment. It's messy, gross, and not worth it. Save everyone the extra heartache. Now, our grandma passed away at the end of August. It hasn't even been a month since she passed. And since she was terminally ill, we did have time to discuss some things and make arrangements for others. She lived in an apartment that's attached to our mom's house, and we had talked about me moving into it after grandma passed. And everyone thought it was a good idea because my grandma had things like no-slip railings, kitchen tools and gadgets for arthritic hands, etc. And I'm also disabled and could benefit from the same equipment. Come to find out, my jerk-faced sister thinks it'd be a cool idea to have her marital affair move into our mom's property instead, so she can use our mom as some kind of cover for her affair. And I'm absolutely repulsed and livid. We were all just starting to let my sister come around again, because after grandma passed, it seemed like it had really affected her and she was turning over a new leaf. But it's all because she wants her boyfriend to move in. I don't think anyone is gonna fly with the idea. I just can't believe that she even thought it would be a viable option and something that she could even suggest to us. Why does she just assume that we'll help her cheat on her husband? I want no part of it. I don't want to be an accomplice. Also, her justification for suggesting he move in is because original poster doesn't seem to be in much of a rush to get up there. Like, yeah, I found our grandma deceased less than a month ago. Sorry I haven't been in a hurry to erase grandma from her home. Sorry I haven't been sorting through all of her belongings and getting them ready to be rehomed or donated. I wish I could keep every trace of her. And the fact that I have to get rid of anything at all hurts. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I haven't done it yet. But maybe try to have a little empathy. I've decided that I'm kicking my sister out of my life again. Each time I think she's capable of changing, she shows that she's still the same horrible, selfish person. And I'm done falling for the charade. Have fun with the inevitable divorce proceedings, and good luck explaining all this bull to your kids too, you jerk. Yeah, I can't really say I blame our poster for not wanting to get involved in this. I mean, this isn't something you would want to get in the middle of even if you like the person, let alone someone who acts as entitled as our original poster's sister. You're making the right call. Just avoid this situation. And cutting her out will avoid any further situations like this, since she seems to be unable to avoid them. Entitled Karen threatens to call the manager if I don't let her into the store after hours. I don't even work here. My ex-wife used to work at Walmart. The store was open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. most days, except for the holidays and New Year's where they closed early at 6 p.m. New Year's Eve one year, she was working till close, 7 p.m. Most retail places keep you an extra hour or past closing to help clean up and any straggling customers, etc. I was off that day and we had plans to go to a party, so we decided I would meet her after work and we would leave from there. I got to the store at 6 o'clock on the nose. They were already turning away customers and locking the door. Anyone inside already got to finish checking out, then had to leave. I knew the manager, so I asked if I could just wait inside the doors until my wife was done work. It was fairly cold and snowing out, so he said no problem. At this location, they had an in and out door which worked regardless of which side you were standing on, so they had to lock both of those doors and were letting people out through the emergency exit located in between them, which can only be opened from the inside. I was standing off to the side by the exit doors. As people tried to leave, they would head to the exit doors, see them locked, stand there for a second, not exactly sure what to do, then head to the emergency exit door. Once they had locked the doors, there was no staff out front directing anyone where to exit. They were standing by the second entrance doors, stopping anyone who snuck in through the emergency exit door. I decided to be nice since I knew most of the staff and was already standing there anyways. And when people came out, I let them know the big door was locked and they had to use the middle door. Apparently everyone had decided to come in just before closing, and it took at least 45 minutes to clear out the store. At about 6:40 or so, Karen comes and bangs on the door right behind me. At first I just ignored her, but it sounded like she was going to smash the glass doors, so I turned to her.
Please, I need to get in. It's an emergency.
Sorry, they're closed.
Please, my kid, he needs his medication. I need to get in. Where's your manager?
Sorry, I don't work here. I'm just waiting for my wife.
Don't you lie to me. I need to speak to your manager right now.
I don't work here. One of the last customers comes out of the store and headed right for the locked door. I said the same thing I was saying all night. Hey, sorry, the big doors are locked. You have to use the small one there. Oh, okay. Thank you. No sooner do they open the door than Karen pushes past them, not even letting them out first, and walks right up to the second indoors, which are also locked. She turns to me and yells,
"Unlock these doors now."
Like I said, I don't work here, and they closed 45 minutes ago. Another customer, and the last customer of the night, besides Karen, comes out the outdoors and leaves. Again, as soon as Karen sees this, she bolts for the outdoors. Manager is standing right there and stops her. Hey, sorry, we're closed.
Please, I just need to pick up a few more things and I'll be right out.
Sorry, all the registers are closed. That was the last customer of the night. We open again on Monday at 7 a.m. She points to me.
Your employee opened the door for me and told me I could get all my shopping done tonight.
Manager looks at me and I just shake my head. Ma'am, he doesn't work here, and honestly, I don't think he's moved from that spot for the last hour or so.
Yes, he does. I've seen him direct a bunch of customers to the proper exit door.
Original poster, is that true? Yes. No one was out here and the customers were getting confused. Well, thank you very much. Manager extends his hand to me. I walk over and shake it. Must have been a bit of an oversight on our end, but I appreciate you helping us out. No problem. And with that perfect timing, all the lights in the store shut off. All that was left on was a few at the front. I assume for the security cameras and staff. Honestly, I didn't know they could shut the lights off. They always seem to be on 24/7.
Please, I'll level with you. I'm throwing a party tonight. It was a last minute thing, and I forgot to get supplies. I really need to just get in there for a few minutes, that's all.
The lights just shut off, so it's against safety regulations for you to even be in here. I can't let you in.
Please, what am I gonna do?
I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Luckily for her, I lived down the street, so I knew the area fairly well. There's a variety store just across the street. They're open 24/7 every day, even Christmas, so they should be open. What I didn't tell her was my ex and I referred to this place as emergency variety, because everything there was 3 times the normal price. So I hope she enjoyed the $10 bags of chips and $3 cans of pop.
Oh, thank you.
She went to leave out of the locked exit door, and of course it didn't open. Sorry, that door is locked. You have to use the middle one there. Why are jerks also stupid? It's a horrible combination. I think anyone who has ever worked in retail has had to deal with this particular breed of Karen. A lot of the times it's like 5 or 10 minutes after the store closes, and it's a little understandable that, maybe they're a little panicked, they need to get something, but I'm sorry, we're closed. This woman showed up 40 minutes after they closed and expected them to just open the doors for her. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Also, the fact that she's lying about needing her kid's medication when she just needed party supplies. If I was an employee and I did let her in and I saw her walking around grabbing bags of chips instead of children's medication, they would immediately get ripped out of her hand and she would be escorted out. Like at that point in time, the employee is going to be following you around and making sure that you get what you need and get out. So you're not going to have the opportunity to shop around for all your chips and stuff anyway. Stop wasting people's time. You screwed up, you have to deal with it. It's not everyone else's problem. And stop trying to get other people in trouble along the way. I commute with my bike and I take the bus. I've been doing this for 5 years. At the end of my day, I ride to the bus stop and I stand by a tree and get my stuff ready for a few minutes before getting on the bus. On this day, I was standing there and a lady with earbuds in came up to me screaming and waving her hands at me to take care of my dog. I was puzzled. There was a black dog walking behind her and it passed her and came over to me and sniffed my hand and was basically sweet to me. I kept telling her, "This isn't my dog," over and over again, and she couldn't hear it because she wouldn't take her earbuds out. She left and the dog walked around the corner to a bench. A different lady who was sitting on the bench was flipping out and screaming for me to get my dog away from her. Once again, I kept saying, "This isn't my dog," over and over. As I did this though, I watched her body language and realized that she must be terrified. I asked her, "Are you afraid of dogs?" And she cried, "Yes." I calmly told her that I would keep the dog away from her, but it wasn't my dog. This dog was so nice and super friendly. No tags, but a harness. We were near a busy road and I didn't want the dog to get hit by a car. I looked around the neighborhood and saw a young girl in her car in the driveway. I asked her if she could take the dog and call animal control or something, just to keep the dog safe until its owner could be found. She was so kind and the dog just loved her and she took him for me. I love animals and I kept thinking about this dog for the next 2 days, hoping that it was safe and warm, being fed and given love. Well, about 3 days later, I was at the same bus stop and I saw a nice man walking what looked like the same dog. I asked him about it and he said, yes, he lost his dog a few days ago, and I told him I was the one who found it. I was so happy to know the dog made it home. I like this story. We have a lost, friendly dog who got to make it home safe, and there was minimal jerk interaction involved, minus the lady with her earbuds. Thankfully, this dog was very friendly and didn't wander into the street or anything once it got lost. This could have been a lot worse if the dog had been a different temperament or had wandered into the road. But I'm glad we get to end on a good note. Entitled mother calls the police on me for parking in a handicap spot. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. For context, I'm a 25-year-old disabled female. I have a handicap placard. I can walk, but it's very difficult to. I realized I was out of stuff for my bearded dragon salad because the collard greens went bad. I decided to go to the store real quick, but it wasn't until I got halfway there that I realized I'd left my cane at home. It was a good day and I wasn't in too much pain, so I decided that turning around would be foolish, and if they had an electric cart at the store, I'd just use that. I get to the store and I'm happy to see that there's one handicap spot left, and I snagged it. I grabbed my mask and started walking to the front doors when I'm blocked by entitled mother, who is livid. She points her finger at my car and got right in my face, like nose to nose. Neither of us have masks on, as I've only taken about 10 steps and I'm still getting my mask on my face. I'm horrified and take many steps back and throw my mask up as fast as I can.
Excuse me, you're in a handicapped spot, and people like you are why my kid had to walk far to the door. Now move your car now.
Ma'am, I have a right to be in this spot. I have a placard. I am disabled.
You're not disabled. You don't have a wheelchair. You don't look disabled at all.
Well, ma'am, I am disabled and my doctor agrees, so I'm going shopping.
What about my kid? He has problems walking because of some medical issues.
Mom, it's not a big deal. I walked around the store fine. I'm getting better.
I'm gonna go shop now. You look like you're done shopping. Sorry there were no open spots for you when you got here. They look really busy. I then walked around them and went into the store. They didn't have any electric carts, so I grabbed a regular cart and leaned on it while getting my dragon's fruits and veggies. I was only in the store about 20 minutes as I like to pick a bunch of different things to give them some variety. No one likes to eat the same thing every day. I'm walking out of my car and see multiple people standing around a police officer. I see the entitled mother looking very smug, and her kid looking like he wants to die. I approach my car nervously because I have no idea what to do. I've never been in this situation before.
This is the woman who's using the handicap spot without being disabled.
She points at me and looks like she's aided in catching a dangerous criminal. The police officer asks, "Ma'am, is that your car? Is that your placard in the windshield?" "Yes, sir, and I can give you the info I got with my placard and my ID to prove it." "That would be great." So I get my stuff out of the glove box and also pull up my disability papers on my phone because I'm literally terrified of what's going to happen. Entitled mother is talking about how I'm so in the wrong and I'm gonna have to pay a fine. And I'm shaking. "Well, everything seems to be in order here. I'm sorry about this hassle. Feel free to leave anytime and have a great day." Entitled mother looks livid. She starts saying how I can't be disabled. I just can't. The police officer asks her to follow him over to her car. I start loading my groceries and I'm trying to get out of there as fast as possible. Her kid comes up to me.
I'm really sorry about her. I don't know what's wrong with her. I have braces on my legs to help me walk better. You can't see them with my pants on and they really help, but she gets so crazy when she can't park up front.
The kid goes back to his mom, who looks like she's getting a reaming from the officer. I quickly leave because I'm still so freaked out about what happened and I don't want to deal with this jerk anymore. Unfortunately, in situations like this, I feel like a lot of assumptions are made that because the driver is younger that they're not actually handicapped, which is pretty arrogant if you think about it. Anyone can be handicapped. It's not just for older people. You would think that this is something that she would be more considerate about, considering her son is way younger and is also disabled. At least in this story, the kid is actually disabled, and it's not mom just wanting a closer parking spot because she's lazy. I do kind of feel bad for the kid that he's having to go through all this. On the plus side, I'm going to take to heart his note that he said he was getting better, and hope that that continued. Unfortunately, he's still going to have to deal with his mother. Some jerk ran up a bunch of parking tickets in my name thinking I would pay them. You're gonna be paying for them and then some. A few years back, my old car was on its last legs. My mechanic said it wouldn't last much longer and the best thing to do was sell it cheap and move on before it gave out and was ready to be scrapped. I loved that little car, but I put it up on Craigslist for $500 and got a bite. The guy buying it was in his 20s with a pregnant wife, and his dad was footing the bill. I was clear with them that it was sold as is and I couldn't make any promises about its longevity. The buyer said that if it lasted 6 months, he'd be happy with the purchase. So he signed the bill of sale and I handed over the title. I immediately went to the DMV website and registered it as a sale and assumed he would finish the process by transferring the title. Turns out I was wrong about two things. The car lasted much longer than 6 months, and he didn't bother to pay the $77 to transfer the title. I discovered this when I received a photo radar ticket for running a red light. I was confused because the street was way across town in an area I rarely visit. When I went online to view the high-res traffic cam photos, I found it was the buyer in my old car, but my name was still attached to the plates. After some serious cursing, I copied all the records, dates, bill of sale, etc., and mailed copies off to the courthouse. It was his citation, but I had to prove it to the court. 2 weeks later, I got another letter from the fuzz. Another ticket, this time for speeding. Same driver, same car, same plates, with my name still attached. Again, I had to copy all the paperwork, write a long letter to the clerk, and mail it off to the courthouse. The third ticket made me really mad. I started making calls and discovered that this scam is pretty common. Some folks buy a junker and rack up fines until they wreck or abandon the car, and their name was never on it, so nobody bothers to punish them for it. It's all on the previous owner to clean up the mess and prove who was at fault. This time, I wrote an extra long letter to the court clerk and did a little research to include the guy's picture, home address, and listed phone number. A few months went by and I thought it was over. Hell, the car should have given out by now anyway. Then the fourth ticket arrived, showing him in high res zipping past a radar cam in my old car with my old bumper sticker still on the back, along with all of his kids piled into the back seat. The fifth and sixth tickets felt like Groundhog's Day. I didn't even bother to put the paperwork away. I kept it out on my desk ready to copy. By the time the seventh ticket arrived, we were well over a year beyond the sale and enough was enough. This wasn't just some dude forgetting to do some paperwork or not knowing the right way to go about buying a car. This was intentional. It was time for some revenge. First, I called the police, and after a week of back and forth, finally spoke with a traffic cop who said enough is enough and went to pay the guy a visit. He said that he couldn't disclose what had happened during that discussion, but the total amount of the likely unpaid traffic tickets was enough to get his attention. The tickets and late fees were several times the value of the car. That wasn't enough. Just having to pay his tickets wasn't appropriate revenge for the 7 freaking times I had to copy that bill of sale for the court clerk. So I started going back through my records of every ticket and every photo, and I found an interesting theme. In every photo, his tiny kids were in the car, including the newborn infant, all packed into the back seat. I called Child Protective Services anonymously. I didn't provide any information that was not 100% factual and verifiable. The tickets showed that this guy was operating an identity fraud scheme out of his home, essentially stealing my identity and who knows how many others. His children were present throughout. Furthermore, he regularly violated traffic rules and put his children in serious danger by speeding, running red lights, and committing other traffic violations. If he was doing this stuff so often in front of a big white camera, how do you think he was driving when he wasn't being watched? I declined to provide my name or number as I had nothing more to offer and didn't want to be involved in the case any further. I gave them all the evidence I had of 3 small children in repeated danger in illegal situations, all of which were verifiable by photo evidence and court documents. After that, I stopped getting traffic tickets from him. Maybe the car finally gave out. Maybe that's what happened. But I'd like to think that maybe this guy finally got what was coming to him. Maybe a few months in jail and having his kids taken away from him will teach him a lesson. I'd never actually heard about this scam before, but this is pretty low. You really don't get much out of this. You're paying for the car, and all you're doing is driving recklessly and having someone else foot the bill. Typically, a scam would be something that profits you a little bit more, no? Doesn't seem like it was worth it for the price he had to pay. I feel bad for our original poster for having to deal with all of this. I'm sure it was a headache. But at the end of the day, who knows what situation he got those kids out of? So it was all for the best, I'm sure. I got my dangerous, sexist high school chemistry teacher semi-fired by secretly recording him. I went to a ghetto high school in a poor community, but my parents raised me to work my butt off so I could get out of there. My parents never went to college. But because of this, myself and my siblings have all gone to good schools out of state. I maintained a 4.0 until the year in question in high school, taking 5 advanced courses a year, out of 6 total, with the last one not offering an honors alternative. I learned to get very little sleep because of the amount of work these courses required, and because my school didn't have tutoring aids or anything of the like. Didn't understand something? Tough luck. Get to Googling. So in one of my upperclassmen years, I signed up for an advanced chemistry course. I knew it would be hard, but assumed like the rest of my courses that if the class was minimally structured and Google came through as per usual, I would be fine. Other students warned me not to take the course, but since I wanted to go to college for chemistry, I knew I had to go through with it. He was old, which is fine, and didn't offer after-class support, which was normal, but also didn't even offer in-class support. His answer to even basic questions was,
"You should already understand that. Talk to me about it later."
But later never came. He didn't offer lunch hours, didn't offer after school hours, and in class would just put up the answers, which were already available online and in the back of the book. My family didn't have fancy tutor money, and none were readily available in my community anyways. I studied my butt off, but when the first test came back, I had a D-, with no notes to even understand what I had done wrong. When I went to speak with him about it right after class ended, missing my part of the next course in the process, he simply told me to look more closely at the textbook for help, and that he didn't have time for me. He was 2 weeks behind the explanations that he did give because he was constantly distracted. All of this is bad, but didn't deserve him being fired yet. What did was when he got dangerous. In an experiment working with hydrochloric acid, a plug held the concentrated stuff in a tube with some magnesium and reacted to form hydrogen bubbles. Well, one of the other students in my group didn't plug the thing properly and the plug fell out, with the magnesium now being in the tube without the hydrochloric acid. So I asked him how to get the tube back, expecting him to tell us to discard the hydrochloric solution, rinse with water, and start over. I had read the safety section in my textbook which had this approach to working with acids. His response? He insisted that I stick my ungloved hand in the solution and just grab the plug, and then still in the solution plug it back in. He wouldn't even put his own hand in to do it, so my high school self thought this was an inherently bad idea. I took some more magnesium from the workbench and kept adding it to the solution until it stopped reacting, eating up all the hydrochloric acid to just leave water. And it kept getting worse. One day, he brought what he claimed were illegal fireworks into the classroom and started setting them off. He thought it would be funny to point them at us wearing no safety equipment or goggles and hoodies that could have easily caught the fiery things. He frequently would leave the room while a group of high school kids were playing with Bunsen burners and caustic chemicals. So in combination with the total lack of education I was getting, I didn't feel safe. Did I mention he was sexist too? I'm a girl, by the way. All of the boys got A's on tests, with no explanations. He even lost one of the other boys' tests and straight up said in front of me and the rest of the class that he would just give him an A-, assuming that he had done well. Later on, I had asked the other student for help understanding something, and even he didn't know what was going on in the course. So I knew it was just bull. Every other girl I asked was getting the same inexplicable grades as I was. This wasn't unusual on its own either, as I lived in a very conservative area and had several sexist teachers. Just usually they'd at least still grade fairly. Last contextual thing, my high school teachers reunion had negotiated for tenure. After coming to college, I learned that this is a very unusual thing, and in retrospect, it's an idiotic thing. This chemistry teacher was tenured, which meant there was basically no way to fire him. Honestly, I felt bad for the bitter old man, because after a botched surgery, he was constantly in pain. He was still teaching because he refused to retire, and he had a son going through college that he needed to pay for. But at a certain point, this was affecting my chances of getting into college. I wasn't about to let one man's issues affect prospects for the rest of my life. So I looked up recording laws for my state, and found that it was a one-party consent state, meaning I could legally record audio of my teacher as long as the campus didn't say anything against it, and they had no policies. And I was one of the parties consenting. So for a month, with my grade tanking despite hours of studying and 3 study books on the course, I recorded him. I recorded his fireworks, his lambasting female students, his crying in the back chemical storage room leaving us unsupervised. I recorded the 3 times he had left campus inexplicably, leaving the front office to send a last-minute substitute to open the door and let us in. You know the 15 minutes and I'm legally allowed to leave meme? That was a constant joke for my class. Then I made a throwaway Gmail and a throwaway Dropbox account. I uploaded everything and emailed it to my superintendent with the ultimatum that if something wasn't done, I would email the recordings to the local news and that I didn't really want to do that. Within a day I heard back, with her assuring me that I wouldn't be punished for ratting him out. My parents, her, and myself met. We went over my grades, my unmarked tests and homework, and the videos. They asked me first to talk over my concerns with the teacher, and I said I was uncomfortable with that given his treatment of female students. The superintendent said she wouldn't tell the teacher who had submitted the evidence, but that they needed to speak with him about the concerns to hear his side of the story. My parents and I said that was completely reasonable, as long as my name was never mentioned. The next day, the teacher said he needed to speak with me after class alone. I told him I couldn't as I had another course after that, and he said that it was important. I turned on my phone's recorder again right before the class ended, and as I was packing up, he approached me. Due to the shape of the classroom, I was literally backed into a corner, and would have had to push this man to the side to get out. He then started saying that one of the students in his course had brought unfounded concerns and lies to the administration about what was going on in the course, and that he knew we hadn't always gotten along well, but that he hoped I wouldn't have done that to him. I lied through my teeth and said that I didn't know what he was talking about, that he was making me uncomfortable by blocking my access to the door, and that I was late for my next class. He didn't even deny what I was saying, just said that since I clearly had a problem with him, he'd be willing to stay after class to help me specifically, since it seemed like I was struggling so much. After that, I told him I really needed to get to my next course, and he finally moved. I emailed my superintendent that recording during my next course and CC'd my parents. My parents were furious. The The superintendent was mad too, because while my parents were poor, they dressed up nicely. My mom was an expert in bluffing about getting a lawyer that we totally couldn't afford. So a liability lawsuit was probably ringing through the lady's mind. Since the district couldn't fire him, he was put on immediate permanent medical leave. While the district was still paying his full pay, they gave us one unqualified substitute after another. 2 months before the national exam for the course, they gave us a female teacher that they had pulled out of retirement, but that had actually taught the advanced chemistry course for years. She was a godsend, and even held 8-hour Saturday classes so that we could catch up with the curriculum at least enough to pass the class. In those 2 months, we covered just enough of the test material that our class had a 50% pass rate. According to my upperclassmen friends, this was a lot higher than it had been in their previous years, with less than 10% of the class passing. The superintendent also wrote me a thank you college recommendation letter, partially to keep me quiet and partially because they had been trying to get rid of this guy for years. My little sister took this course a couple of years after me and said that the new teacher was competent and that they were still at a 50% pass rate. I guess it's a lot easier to learn when you're not being taught by a jerk. I have to admit, I do kind of feel bad for the guy that he was working through all of his pain just because he had to pay for his son's college. But at the end of the day, these are other kids' futures on the line as well. And if he's not doing his job properly, then they're going to be the ones to suffer. I do feel like our original poster did the right thing. Like she said, when it reached the point of getting dangerous, that's where there's a serious problem. You don't care about what you do? Fine, I can understand that. But a classroom is no place for this dangerous behavior, especially a chemistry classroom. You need to be exceedingly careful. I do feel like the tenure probably just made him take the job for granted. I've never heard of high school teachers getting tenure before. I thought that was only a college or university thing. If you guys know anything about this, let me know in the comments. I had to kick my entitled sister out of my engagement dinner because she wouldn't stop taking photos and made a scene. I'm blessed to be marrying the love of my life. My engagement party was booked at an upscale restaurant, and prior to the day, I sat my sister down and told her that I wanted the party to be focused on the wedding, and to please not go above and beyond to take photos for her social media page. I might get flack for this part, but my sister is trying really hard to become famous online. I've never said anything to her because she's an adult and this is her life. But for my wedding, I really didn't want her to pull any of her antics, because she doesn't take just a few photos to post. She's the embarrassing caricature of the perpetually online influencer. She'll order 2 dishes at a restaurant, one to take photos of because it's prettier, and the second to actually eat. She's stopped traffic before to take outfit photos in the street. She also staged fake things to post online. One time she started crying in a Starbucks and made up a fake story about how the barista bullied her. I want to make it clear that I did not bar my sister from taking photos. I just didn't want her doing something that would embarrass me. Everything was okay until she literally stood on top of her chair to take a top-down photo of her meal. Everyone was staring and in shock, and a waiter had to come and ask her to sit down. She refused to and started to argue loudly with the waiter, saying that she was the sister of the bride, and then started to loudly sob that she was getting bullied. I was mortified and immediately had the groomsmen escort her out of the room. She's since blasted me on social media, calling me a jerk for not handling the situation with more grace and empathy. She says that I could have given her a warning instead of kicking her out immediately. I was kind of panicked, so I wonder if I could have handled it better. Am I the jerk? No, absolutely not. I'm sorry. This person's acting like a child. If that's the way you're gonna behave, you don't get to sit at the grown-ups table. You gave her her warning a full 24 hours in advance because you knew this was gonna happen. And she chose to do it anyway. I have no sympathy for her. She sounds like the typical I'm the center of attention drama queen trying to post everything on social media. And like you said, she's just looking for a story, so she makes a scene on purpose. This is your engagement party. She can leave her job elsewhere for the day and behave like an adult. I catfished my high school teacher because he was bullying me. I'm a guy. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. First, some background. He knew my dad because my dad was a lawyer and had represented his ex-wife several years before in a super bitter divorce. For some reason, he took that frustration out on me. He would verbally abuse me in front of the class. If I raised my hand to answer a question, he would roll his eyes before calling on me and loudly say to the class,
Listen to what original poster says. That way you will know what the wrong answers are.
He would criticize my work and make comments about how I'll never amount to much because obviously I
have a learning disability.
I don't. He was just being a jerk. I would often get marked down for penmanship, but after asking some classmates, apparently I was the only one being graded on that. I know history wasn't my best subject, but the way I was being treated was totally uncalled for. I began to have anxiety to go to that class. I would dread it all day. My friends would even mention casually, "Yeah, Mr. Smith really doesn't like original poster. What did you do to him, bro?" My dad was pissed that he was obviously being biased towards me for something that I had nothing to do with. My dad made noise and tried to get me moved into another class, but the district and school were over capacity as it was. I couldn't move classes without displacing another student, and the school didn't think that would be fair to the other student. But it's fair to me to let this keep going on because you can't move me, sure. Now, my dad never discussed details of his cases, but I had overheard him angrily telling my mom after our meeting with the principal that he doesn't like that I'm in that pervert's class. An idea was planted in my head, and it started to grow. I devised a plan. I gathered social media pics of a girl who was underage and went to another school, and made some profiles on Kik and WhatsApp using a Google Voice number from our city. I changed her name for obvious reasons. Once I had him hooked on the made-up 17-year-old girl, I sent all the chat logs and pics he sent to her, to the principal, and the school district main office using every email address I could find on the school district website and social media pages. Within 3 days of the emails being sent, we had a sub. All were told that Mr. Smith had to take some time off due to personal issues. I still don't know what happened to him after that. I graduated about 3 months after he was put on leave and never heard from or saw him again. I joined the military and left town about 6 months after all this happened and have not returned to that city since. One of my friends who still lives there told me a while back he saw him working the deli counter at a grocery store not far from the high school. I never told a single soul and nobody knows it was me. The rumor mill went around about him being a pervert, but nobody knew I had anything to do with it, even though I benefited the most from his departure. I imagine they tracked the girl down and asked her, but she obviously didn't know him. However, the chat logs from WhatsApp show the girl telling him she was 17 about 3 days before he sent the first of many pictures. So that was probably enough to at least get him fired and lose his teaching certification. I don't regret it, but I would never go so far on anyone again. I was a bitter, moody teen, but when you're being bullied by someone with authority over you, you have to do what you have to do to survive, regardless if you're being a jerk. No, I don't think you were being a jerk at all. It's very clear that the teacher was holding a grudge for something that our original poster had nothing to do with. And honestly, I don't think our poster went too far with their retaliation. It seems our poster's father knew something was going on with this guy, and our poster outing him like this could have saved a lot of other girls some potential trouble. He probably did everyone a favor, more so than he knows. Entitled Karen demands I lift her 30-pound bag of dog food despite the fact that I'm 8 months pregnant. I'm a vendor at many stores. I'll go in and put up a few signs or put some sticker on product, super easy work. Anyways, months back, I was about 8 months pregnant with my second daughter and I was working in a local grocery store putting up some signs. As I was in the pet aisle, I noticed this woman is glaring at me. I removed my headphones and she says,
I said I need that dog food.
"Oh, sorry ma'am, I don't work for a store name."
So, I need help. You need to put that in my cart.
She was getting increasingly angry. "No ma'am, I'm sure there's an employee nearby, but I don't work for store name."
Well, who do you work for so I can complain?
She says as she's staring at my name badge that's hanging in front of my huge pregnant stomach. I did notify the store manager and he apologized to me. I also called my manager in case she actually did try to complain to my company. I never heard anything else about it. Regardless of the fact if she works there or not, the woman is 8 months pregnant. You can't expect her to live a 30-pound bag of dog food. As she said, I'm sure there's another employee nearby that'd be willing to help you. Are you really gonna stand there and harass the pregnant lady? Come on. I told my sister it's strange to call her boyfriend her husband if they're not married. I'm a 30-year-old female, and my sister, 39, has been with her boyfriend, 41, for 15 years. They have no intention of getting married. They just see it as a piece of paper, but I feel differently. For their anniversary, they got each other what essentially looked like engagement/wedding rings, and when they started to wear the rings, they made it seem like they had gone and eloped. They had an anniversary party with friends and family, and everyone was congratulating them. But on what? She came over yesterday, and I was honest with her and said, I think it's strange that they're willing to wear rings, even call each other husband and wife, but not get married. She told me they don't need a piece of paper to tell them they can call each other husband and wife, but I argued that they're literally doing everything a married couple would do. They're just not making it official, and it doesn't make any sense to me. I said, I feel like husband and wife labels are saved for married couples. She said that this shouldn't matter to me, it's just a label, and called me a judgmental jerk. We argued for 10 minutes before she left. My mom called me crying because my sister called her crying, and now both of them say they're disappointed in me and I'm being unsupportive of my sister's decision to not get married. The only thing is, I feel like I'm lying if I call him her husband or introduce him as her husband. But if I still only call him her boyfriend, my mom and my sister will both still be angry. And if I call him her partner, then they'll see me as avoiding the label husband. Am I the jerk here? So this is a bit of a weird one. I'm gonna say you're not wrong, but you are being a jerk. At the end of the day, it's their relationship. It's none of your business if they want to call themselves husband and wife. They have been together for 15 years. As far as I'm concerned, if you've been together that long and you have no intention of separating and are going to be spending the rest of your lives together, then you can call yourself husband and wife, especially if you don't believe in the idea of traditional marriage for whatever reason. It's them referring to themselves as life partners, and I feel like you're taking that away from them. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about this one in the comments. My mom and aunt said some horrible stuff about my fiance, so I've uninvited them from the wedding. I, 25-year-old male, am extremely lucky to be marrying the woman of my dreams, Maya, 24-year-old female. I'm originally American, but moved to Norway when I was 19 to get a college education without paying an arm and a leg. I met Maya when I was 20, and we've been together ever since. We recently got engaged, and our wedding is planned for this fall. I wanted to tell my family in person about it, so we planned a trip to visit my hometown to announce it. This is the third time my parents, 55-year-old male and 52-year-old female, are meeting her in person, and the first time for my more distant relatives. We had a big dinner at my aunt's, 57-year-old female Deborah, which is where we announced it, and most of my family was ecstatic and congratulated us. My mom, Deborah, and one other aunt did not look that happy. I didn't really pay it much mind at first, but as the evening progressed, Maya told me she felt super uncomfortable with the glares that she was getting from the three of them. She's quite shy and not very confident in her English, so we talked in Norwegian between the two of us for the most part. Of course, when talking with my family, we spoke English, but I started to feel the chill from my mother's glares whenever the two of us were talking. I told Maya I'd be right back, and I talked with my dad about what the deal was. He just kinda shrugged and told me,
You know how your mom gets with women you're seeing. Don't worry about it. She's just upset to see that her son is putting roots down an ocean away.
He was wrong about not needing to worry. After dessert, my mom stood up and gave a toast.
Cheers to my son and his fiancée. She may not be the best woman for him, but I'm sure he'll realize that once he sees what a slut and gold digger she is. Or maybe she'll grow a conscience and save him from himself. Cheers!
Maya left the room crying, and there was a long silence, aside from my mom and aunt snickering, before I broke in and said, You realize that the choice for who the most important woman in my life is hasn't had you in the running for nearly a decade. I actually love her and would choose a kick to the nuts over you. The three of you aren't welcome at our wedding, and Maya and I will be staying at a hotel for the rest of our time here. And then I left as quickly as possible with Maya. I feel bad for putting Maya through that and don't want her to have to deal with anything like that on what's supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives. But at the same time, I've been getting calls from my family about how unreasonable I'm being. That my mom was just drunk and worried about me, etc., etc. My sister, who is no contact with our mother, told me that I royally screwed up and probably burned most of the bridges with our family, or at least our mother's side. And a lot of my mother's side have said they won't come unless I re-invite my mom and aunts. My dad said he can't come unless my mom can go, and he truly wants to be there. I don't know what to do, and Maya said it's my choice, but she really doesn't want them there. Am I the jerk? As far as I'm concerned, no. You didn't make this decision, they did. By acting the way they acted towards your soon-to-be wife, they've made their decision in not wanting to be a part of your life. Those are some horrible things to say to someone's face. If that's really what you think, at least keep it to yourself. I honestly just find this behavior disgusting, and I think you're going to be better off without them in your life. Your sister's clearly already made the decision to cut her out for a reason. Maybe you just need to take that leap too. I refuse to give my blessing to my daughter's boyfriend. I'm 43 years old. My daughter is 21, and I've been a single mother for most of her life, with occasional visits from my ex-husband. I've always wanted my daughter to be independent and to do what's best for her. I was not raised with religion and am agnostic/atheist leaning. My daughter is in college, which I'm happy to pay for. She got a boyfriend 7 months ago whom I haven't met yet, but she spoke well of him. So she showed up at my door with her boyfriend who was wearing a suit and introduced himself. I invited them in and served coffee, except he didn't drink the coffee. Now I realized that this was an early sign. I tried to get him to talk so I could get to know him better. He immediately started talking about how much he loved my daughter and how much he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her and asked for my blessing. I thought this was strange. This boy just walked into my house and asked to marry my daughter. I hardly knew his last name, and I don't care about blessings, but they're too young. He started off saying that he would provide for her, that his family was a good, God-loving family, that they were well off, that she wouldn't have to study or work, and that I would benefit from joining them. He said that traditions were important to him, that their children would have a nice private education, that we could join their religious community, and that the wedding would be in a nice church in the middle of nowhere. First, I'm surprised that such a young boy could be so deeply religious. Sounds like my grandfather's crazy friends. Second, my daughter wouldn't study or work? No, I didn't raise my child to be a barefoot, cleaning, cooking, pregnant trophy wife. As much as I don't care about parental blessing, I have actively refused it and explained my reasons very well. I'm paying for her education and I'm not letting it go to waste. And I want my daughter to be her own person, not a doormat. The boyfriend was silent, stood up, thanked me, and left with my daughter. Later the next day, she called me crying and screaming. She said she had tried to get her father's blessing, but he had also refused. She accused me of conspiring against her happiness, and her boyfriend said he wouldn't marry into a family that doesn't know God, and that I was ruining her life. I don't know why she wants this kind of life, but her boyfriend looks and sounds sketchy AF. But I wonder if I should have left her alone. Am I the jerk? Did I ruin this for everyone? No, I don't think you're being the jerk at all. This sounds very sketchy to me as well. If I'm being given any say, absolutely no way I'm letting my daughter spend the rest of her life with this dude. Just from this short story, I get really creepy vibes from him right away. The fact that he just shows up in a suit and immediately asks to marry your daughter when you've barely even had a chance to get to know him just sets off red flags for me. It's like you're trying to get my approval before I find out something about you that I'm not gonna like. Trust me, you made the right decision. You're just looking out for your daughter. What she does from here is unfortunately entirely up to her, but I hope at the end of the day, everyone is just happy and safe. My stepson refuses to stop talking about his dad, so I had to tell him to cut it out. My wife and I got married last summer. I have a son, 14, and a daughter, 12, with my ex-wife, and my wife has a son, 7, with her ex-husband. We all moved in together in late 2021. My kids get along great with their stepbrother, and they adore my wife. I've had a trickier time bonding with my stepson. We have my kids every other week, and my stepson goes to his dad's every other weekend. My stepson is a massive daddy's boy. His dad takes him on some kind of adventure every weekend they're together. He's always talking about what he's going to do with his dad or what he and his dad did that weekend, which is annoying, but fine. However, recently he keeps comparing me to his dad, saying things his dad would do differently or telling me his dad can do something so I should be able to too. Last weekend we went camping, which is something we've not really done before as a family. When it came to building a campfire, my stepson started complaining I was doing it wrong. I was following a YouTube tutorial and tried to interfere with what I was doing. He then said, "How are you a man but you don't even know how to make a fire?" before going on to talk about how his dad could light a fire with a stick. I was already stressed about the whole weekend and I ended up snapping at him and telling him to shut up about his dad. Obviously, I was in the wrong for snapping. After finishing the fire, I went to apologize to him and let him know I was in the wrong for talking to him like that. I did, however, reaffirm that I would like it if he stopped talking about his dad so much. Later in the week, he must have mentioned something to my wife about not being allowed to mention his dad. She's now mad at me for having this discussion with him, even though I know she finds it annoying as well. In truth, I've always felt self-conscious about my wife's ex-husband, as he's a very stereotypically masculine guy, ex-Marine, and I'm the opposite. My wife's sister called me an overcorrection to my face a few months into dating. It's also frustrating to see how much my stepson idolizes his dad when he doesn't know how much his dad hurt his mom. He cheated on her, was abusive, and continued to financially abuse her post-separation. His dad has refused to have any more custody time with his son, and even when we went on our honeymoon last year, he sent his son to his mom's rather than look after him. I know how much it hurts my wife to see her son favor his dad when he does the bare minimum as a father, and damaged her so badly. Am I the jerk for suggesting he stop talking about his dad so much? Yeah, this one is a really tough spot to be in. At the end of the day, this boy is 7 years old. It's understandable for him to look up to his father as a hero, and not fully understand what he did to his mother. But it's hard to know if it's better to actually let him know now what a piece of crap his father is, or to let him find out on his own over time. Either way, I can tell you that if his father is the way you describe him, your stepson will come to understand in time how you feel, I'm sure. It may take a little bit longer to build a relationship with him. I think there still needs to be some maturing done on his side. At the end of the day, he's just a child. I understand how you feel, and I'm not going to call you a jerk, but you acknowledge that snapping was not the way to handle this and that there are better ways. I think a decision needs to be made whether he's sat down and had a conversation with about some of the reality about his father. I told my mom she'll have to stop fat-shaming my son or she'll have to live elsewhere. My son Kellen, 16-year-old male, is a bigger kid and has always had self-confidence and anxiety issues like I did when I was a kid. He decided to try out for wrestling last year, and though I didn't like it, his dad was all for it, and Kellen's therapist agreed it could be good for him, and that he should do it as long as it's not affecting his mental health in a negative way. My mom can't live on her own anymore, and even though we don't have the best of relationships, my brothers are too busy for her to stay with them. So she moved in with us in January. Now, Kellen hasn't been around my mom a whole lot because of how she was when I was a kid, constantly critiquing me and my body or forcing me on diets and making comments about my weight, etc. All of which caused me to have an eating disorder. She seems to have mellowed out since then, or so I thought. At first, Kellen welcomed his grandma happily, and they seemed to get along fine. But over the last couple of weeks, he seems to have withdrawn from her. I also noticed she'd sometimes ask about his weight class, or ask him how he got such a cute boyfriend, which I didn't like, but I thought they were innocuous. Lately, I've been seeing Kellen working out way more than usual and eating less. Sunday night, I found him in his old treehouse crying, and I asked what was wrong, and he just blurted out that he thought his boyfriend was going to break up with him. Confused, since his boyfriend seems to like him a lot, I asked why he thought that, and he told me that grandma said he needed to tone up or a cute skinny boy like his boyfriend wouldn't stay with him for long. I was growing more peeved by the second. I asked what else she'd been saying, and he told me a lot of the same crap she used to say to me. I reassured him the best I could before he went to bed, and then I confronted my mom. I told her she could never talk to Kellen like that again. She got defensive, saying that she was just giving him good advice. And I reminded her about all the crap her advice had put me through and told her to either quit it or she'd have to find somewhere else to live. We haven't really talked since then, but I've been getting calls from my brothers and extended family about how could I say such a thing and threaten to put her out like that. Am I the jerk? No. I think she needed to be put in her place. She clearly doesn't understand what she did to you as a child, and she's gonna sit there and do the exact same thing to your son? Of course you're gonna try and step in. I think it's perfectly natural for you to want to try and protect him in that way. Honestly, these are all just comments she really needs to keep to herself if that's really the way that she thinks. And I have to assume, since she's living there, that she knows that he has these self-confidence issues. She really shouldn't be leaning on them like that. And as for the rest of your family calling you and giving you a hard time about it, it sounds like they just don't want you to put her out because then they'll have to be responsible for her. It seems like there might be a reason why everyone's avoiding this woman. Regardless, I don't think you've done anything wrong here. You're fully entitled to try and protect your son from that kind of toxic environment. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That's not something that you ever need to feel bad about. Trust me, you're doing your son a favor here. My boss punishes me for being 2 minutes late, so I charge him for every time I was early. Here's what happened. Subscribe to AmITheA on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I've worked at many retail chains and have had many terrible bosses. Here's one story I think I can give up without any repercussions. At a small specific retail store about 5 or 6 years ago at this point, I was confronted by my old boss on a specific event, that I was late by 2 minutes. The previous day he had asked me to come in on my day off, and at an earlier time than I normally do. I agreed to come in on my day off and work a shift I'm not normally used to, but it's retail, it can't be that difficult. My boss asked me to work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I showed up at 7:02 a.m., which in my state, there's a 5-minute window for everyone, and this was 100% not a habit of mine at all. I'm normally one to show up 5 minutes early every day and wait aside the time clock. I clocked in and walked to my department with a drink I'd already purchased the previous day. As I walked into the department, the manager greeted me, then said,
"When I schedule you at 7 a.m., I expect you to be in department by 7 a.m., not a minute later. We can't pay you to clock on, buy something, and then start working. Over the course of a year, that adds up to hundreds of dollars of lost labor for one individual."
I told my old boss that my drink was from the previous day and that I just clocked in on 2 minutes late. My old boss replied with,
"That's not my problem. You need a better plan. You were scheduled at 7 and we're not losing cost of labor each minute you're not here. Be in department at scheduled time."
Which is not true. I spoke regularly with a payroll employee, and she explained to me quite some time prior that the company does not pay you 3 minutes before or after your scheduled time. So if you clock on at 7 a.m., you're not getting paid until 7:03. If you clock on at 6:57, you're not getting paid until 7 a.m. Same for when you return from lunch. However, if you clock on at 7:04 after that 3-minute window, you begin getting paid immediately that minute. My boss was right. I needed to plan better. I asked for a printout of my timestamps going as far back as they had record of, and I tallied up each day that I had arrived 3 minutes early and did not get paid for it. I counted well over 330 minutes within a 3-month span that I was not getting paid for, which ended up being a little over $110. I gave my old boss a copy and said, "You can pay me for these dates where I was in department on the dot without getting paid for it." My old boss then replied,
"That's not how our company works."
He then went into detail to explain to me exactly what I had already known and had given him a copy of. Yet my old boss is now recognizing that he's contradicting himself and willingly lied to me. When everything clicked in his head that he's contradicted himself, it was far too obvious because his face went bright red and he started smiling. In my opinion, like he'd been caught.
"Well, you know the policy. We can't pay you for that."
Then I'll begin my shift when I'm getting paid, not the minute you scheduled me. It's not like you're losing labor if you're not even paying the employees that window of time. Schedule me at 7 if you like, but I'll not be clocking in until 4 minutes after the scheduled time. So you won't be losing any cost of labor for it, and I won't be losing pay over your personal policy. For about 3 weeks, I clocked in 4 minutes late every day, no matter how early I arrived. I eventually got a warning from the building's HR that that's riding the line and very close to getting a write-up and down the discipline road. I explained to her the entire story, as she seemingly didn't like this manager of mine either. She laughed pretty hard at the whole thing and offered me a department transfer with a higher pay. She reminded me that my behavior was listed under a category that could get me terminated, and thought the transfer would be a fresh start. Instead, I put in my 2 weeks notice and thanked her for the wonderful opportunity. The funniest part of all this is years later I saw my old manager working at a new chain, in a similar position to what he was doing when I worked for him. He smiled and waved, I smiled and waved, and continued on. As time went on, I also bumped into the old HR manager who was working in an entirely different field. I asked her why my old boss left that company. She laughed and said, "He didn't leave, we fired him for time theft." Apparently, my old boss would take a lunch, leave the building, and never clock out for it. Can you believe this jerk? This is something I've never agreed with. The company's always looking to take care of itself, and doesn't recognize that it goes the other way as well. This manager is trying to shark minutes off of our poster, but doesn't understand that they've been sharking minutes off of them for the entire employment. Now, not only is this a problem with the manager in question, but apparently even HR is saying that they're riding the line and that this behavior could lead to termination. And that's just ridiculous to me. You guys need to go both ways. If you're not going to pay the employee for their time, you can't get mad at them for not wanting to work. You're literally asking them to work for free. As the manager stated, all those few minutes add up at the end of a year. But yeah, you best believe that when it starts going the other way, all of a sudden the company's taking very close watch. It's just one of those things that really annoys me. Make sure you're looking out for yourself out in the workforce, folks. My ex-girlfriend refused to pay for the GPS that she lost, so I made her pay for something else. I recently broke up with my girlfriend. Before we split, she borrowed my mom's GPS to help her move across the country for school. Well, it's been a few months since our breakup and I asked her twice to send the GPS back and tell me the tracking number. Nothing showed up at my doorstep. I know, I should have gotten the GPS back before we broke up. I messed up. Today, I reached out and asked about the status of it. Her reply? She lost it. Now, I'm unsure whether she's genuinely misplaced it. She could be absent-minded at times. Threw it away out of revenge. She could be spiteful. Or is just keeping it. Honestly, after the next exchange, I couldn't care less what the reality was. Well, can you send me some money to replace it? No. Okay. Originally, I had planned to let this go. However, I remembered something. One of her favorite games was paid for and linked with my Origin account. 5 minutes later, password was changed. The security settings were already set up to send a code to my phone, and all of her devices weren't listed as trusted. Have fun buying and restarting everything on that game you love, jerk. This one honestly feels like an equal tit for tat. It really is a jerk move of the ex to just hang on to it and not offer to pay for it, but we don't know what went on with the breakup. Maybe there's a little bit of bad blood here. Either way, my recommendation is to typically try and resolve something like this peacefully, because both of you have the potential to really screw with each other. And I don't think anyone wants to deal with that when you guys have already broken up. Just sort your stuff out and move on. You want to do things by the book? Okay, but you're not going to like it. I work as a freelance artist doing advertisement, ticket, and program booklet designs for various police and firefighter events that want to give to children's charities. It's not consistent work, but it pays pretty well for what it is. The people I work with directly are a promotions company that was created to sell the advertisement space and tickets. I've been working for them for a long time. Throughout COVID, these people were essentially my only source of income. So I had to put up with their BS. Mostly having to put up with hearing the check is in the mail for 2 or 3 months before it actually arrives. I convinced the owner of the company to download PayPal so I could be paid in a reasonable time. He was confused on how to use it, so I told him about Cash App. I was paid through Cash App only once before he said, "I just want to keep doing this by the book. These websites you're sending me to look scammy." And because I don't work for him, I work for the unions, and they're the ones cutting the checks. I asked him if he really wants to do that. Of course, he said yes. If you say so, my friend. He's becoming quite upset with me since he realized doing it by the book actually gives me all of the leverage. From that point forward, I had begun putting my logo watermark on every single thing I send him. The first time he experienced this was with show tickets. He asked me to remove the watermark and send it to the printers. He was satisfied with the work. I told him the watermark will come off when there's money in my account. He told me that he can't start making sales unless he has the tickets to sell. Thus, he doesn't have the money to pay me. Oh man, that sucks. Better figure out how to pay me electronically then. Here's my Bitcoin and Ethereum wallets, PayPal, and Cash App info, as well as info for direct deposit. He insisted he couldn't pay me before he has the tickets, so he agreed to a 50% price increase for me to release the files to him without pay, and with my company's logo on them. I actually got paid for that today. The second time was with a show poster. The same instance occurred, only this time I was told I'd have to talk to the Fraternal Order of Police about being paid. Since I work for them, they were very confused when I called them. And an hour later, I got an angry phone call and was paid via direct deposit from the promoter's business account, not the FOP's account. This morning was pretty interesting. He called me up while meeting with the police association to talk about cutting me a check for the last show that happened yesterday. On this call, I was asked about bank transfers, asked how to make a Bitcoin wallet, all that good stuff. but the promoter asked why my invoice stated that I'm no longer accepting checks as a form of payment. Are you sure you want me to answer that in this meeting? I asked him. He said yes. So I told him while he was on speakerphone with his boss, because you don't pay me for months when we do checks. I only accept online or bank transfers. There was a little bit of back and forth between him and the guy from the police association. It didn't sound like Mr. Promoter was having a good time. I was told I would get a call back about payment. Well, I received that call. From the police association, not the promotion agency. I've been paid via PayPal and apologized to profusely. When I got the call from the promoter afterward, he had a very upset tone. He asked me why I'm doing all this. Well, sir, you told me you wanted it done by the book, right? This is by the book. We didn't do it by the book before because I've worked for you for years and your son is my best friend. So this is how it will be from now on. We'll see how it turns out. I'm confident I won't be losing any work since the police associations, firefighters, and other organizations have repeatedly told me how great my work looks, and how I often work at half the price of other freelancers. I don't know if I can say the same about the jerk promoter though. Remember before when I told you to look out for yourself in the workforce? That's exactly what our original poster did here, and good for them. It seems like employers will take any opportunity they can to get some hard work for free, or at least put off paying as long as possible. Our poster handled this exactly the way they needed to, and are well within their rights to do so. Always be aware of your rights, guys, because the company is certainly aware of theirs, and they don't hesitate to try and bend the rules to get their way. Make sure you're not being taken advantage of. Okay, I'll take off my tinfoil hat now. Since you won't pay for my coffee, how about a hotel room 3-course meal and breakfast? I used to work for a company in the UK, based in London, but with regular travel all around the country. We had very long hours and were required to be on site when work began at 7:30 a.m., but you could be hundreds of miles away. You were allowed to stay away, but you had to get approval from a senior manager, usually only agreed to through gritted teeth because of the difficult expenses policy and the wrath of the senior manager who approved the expenses. More on this guy soon. I used to get up early and commute all around the country, often doing 2 to 3 hours in the car at a time. Most often, I'd stop to fuel the car or just have a break, usually grabbing some breakfast and a coffee because I was often leaving the house before it was palatable to eat breakfast. I was young and conscientious, so I would buy my own breakfast, but buy a coffee separately and keep the receipt for expenses. Usually a £5 breakfast and a £3 coffee. Our expenses policy allowed me to put the whole lot on expenses, but like I said, I was conscientious. Anyways, after months of this, I submit my expense claim. My AmITheA manager approves it without batting an eyelid as he can see the address on the receipts and the timestamps. So once the manager has approved it, the expenses would go to one senior manager to approve, for maybe 200 to 300 claims a week. Major trust issues and seriously backwards. One morning, early at head office, the senior manager comes into my office and tells me to follow him. I follow him to his office and he explains to me that the company isn't there
To buy you coffees.
Long story short, I'm told to stop playing fast and loose with the expense policy, I wasn't, and follow the rules. So I decided to do just that. Speaking with HR, they had a policy about work-related driving and EU working time directive, which meant that all early starts and late finishes had to stop immediately because it was breaching policy and the law. So the next time I had to be on site for 7:30 and was 2 to 3 hours away, I stayed at a hotel the night before. 3-course meal and breakfast, all in line with the expense policy and work time policies. This continued for about a month, because you can only submit expenses for payment in the last week before payday. My expenses went from £100 a month to £1,000 a month. Expenses submitted, manager approved, sent to senior manager. I get a phone call to come to HQ the next day for a talk with the senior manager in HR. The following day I attend, get an absolute roasting.
What the heck did I say? Who do you think you are?
And when I finally could get a word in, I explained how I was traveling in line with company policy, health and safety regulation, while also complying with the expense policy to the letter. HR confirmed. Nothing he could do. Needless to say, the policy was changed some months later. I felt much better because I was well rested, fed, and working the hours I was being paid for. Next time, just pay for my coffee, jerk. I said I was going to take off the tinfoil hat. But here we are again with another company taking advantage of an employee. A 2 to 3 hour trip every day, always to a new location, is kind of excessive. I feel like the least you can do is pay for the person's coffee. It's a really small price you're paying compared to what they're doing for you. But the manager got petty and wanted to try and save a buck, and look what happened. One by one, they'll learn their lesson, folks. I straight up told my sister she's gonna lose her daughter if she doesn't let this grudge go. My sister Viv has a daughter named Serenity. We'll call her Sarah. So when Sarah was 7, her dad passed away. Her dad walked out the door to work that morning and got in an accident which cost him and 2 others their lives. Viv was understandably shell-shocked. She and Sarah's dad were high school sweethearts who had Sarah the year after they finished college. Sarah and her dad were as close as could be, and his loss rocked her. About a year later, Viv met her current husband Michael. A year after they started dating, they introduced Sarah and Michael's daughter Mia to each other. Sarah was 9 at the time and asked her mom not to keep dating Michael and not to be Mia's stepmom. She told Viv that she wanted her to herself and didn't want to be second choice to her. Viv, instead of showing concern that Sarah would feel that way, or even ask some questions about where that was coming from, called her selfish and told her she was a child who had no idea how the world worked and would not get to be selfish by denying another kid a mom. She also told her Michael was looking forward to being her stepdad and that she'd be better off having another dad and a sister for the first time. I remember at the time telling Viv that she had felt the very same way when our dad married our stepmom, and we didn't even lose our mom to death. She just left our lives. Viv was especially angry that our stepmom had 2 kids of her own and didn't want to do anything with them. She said that she was a selfish little witch back then too, and realizes now they were the best thing to happen to us. Sarah is now 16 and she's in high school. Mia is 15 and also in high school. The girls are not close. I think both of them still see themselves as only children, and they're not claiming each other from what I know. Viv has held on to what Sarah said as a 9-year-old girl who lost her dad and was scared to lose her mom. And because she and Mia aren't close, she brings it up to her constantly and accuses her of trying to get in her way by not embracing Mia. Michael, I've come to realize, just wanted someone to raise his daughter and is not really involved all that deeply in anything related to his marriage to Viv or being a parent to either girl, even Mia. Sarah told me, my husband, and my mother-in-law, who acts as grandma to her, that she feels like her mom hates her and that she wishes she could just move out. She told me she can see now that Mia is more important to her and that unless she loves Mia and adopts her as a real sister, she'll never have her mom back. She also told me she wishes she had never said anything to Viv and how much it makes her wish her dad was still around. Viv didn't like how much time Sarah was spending with us, confronted me, and I told her she'd lose her daughter if she doesn't get over this grudge and accept that her child just wanted to experience less change after such a big loss. Viv said I was ruining her family. She also called me a witch. So, am I the jerk here? Oh, I feel so bad for this girl. It's not fair at all to hold your daughter accountable for something that she said when she was very emotional as a 9-year-old kid. That just seems crazy to me that you wouldn't be able to understand where she was coming from in that moment. Perhaps she's taking her own life experience a little too hard and trying to force this on her daughter, thinking that she knows best because of what she went through. And I mean, that's nice and all, but she was a 9-year-old girl who had just lost her father. It's a perfectly natural feeling. I'd like to meet the 9-year-old that could take this situation with all the grace that she expected her daughter to have. It's just not a fair expectation. And I don't think our original poster is in the wrong at all for pointing it out to the mother. I feel like after all this time, mom just maybe isn't willing to admit her mistake. That or her viewpoint is just very skewed on the issue. But to accuse our original poster of trying to ruin her family by taking the time to speak with her daughter and try and understand how she's feeling is not being fair to her at all. That accusation is completely the opposite of what our poster is trying to do here. She's trying to give your daughter an outlet and a place to express her emotions, and maybe she can take this all in and then come to you and try and help find a solution for you two. Mom really needs to just come down off her high horse and start trying to understand where her daughter is coming from and how she's feeling. This relationship is absolutely still salvageable. She just needs to put a little understanding into it. Karen says I'm too old to have asthma, so she steals my inhaler. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This just happened and I'm still pretty freaked out. Here's our cast. Me, entitled mom, entitled kid, innocent kid, and my dad. So a bit of backstory. I'm a teenage girl living in Central Florida. Florida is really hot, like all the time. It's in the high 80s and I'm at a park with sports fields since I play softball. We were practicing on a Tuesday evening, so there were tons of little kids at the playground. We were practicing running the bases properly and sliding into the bases. For everyone who doesn't know, when you slide, you basically kick out one of your legs, putting the opposite one behind that leg, making a 4 shape. You slide across the clay on the ground to make it harder for the other team to tag you out. If you do it wrong, you could get hurt easily. Now, I may be an older softball player, but I've never actually learned how to slide. So me, being a clumsy person, ended up twisting the leg that was supposed to be straight around and smacking my left knee facing the wrong way into the hard clay. It made a popping sound and I dislocated it at the very least. It hurt a lot. I was crying and my dad wasn't present because he went to get a soda from Circle K. My teammates put me on the closest park bench, which was right outside of the playground, so it would be easier for my dad to pick me up to get to a doctor. We didn't go to the ER because we don't have healthcare and didn't think it was serious enough. I'm done crying, but I'm very scared as I've hurt my knees and I'm hoping it's not serious. I have asthma, but not super serious. I only use my inhaler during sports, during PE, or when I'm having an anxiety attack. I had my inhaler in my softball bag and my softball best friend gets it for me since I'm having an anxiety attack over one of my knees being dislocated. I'm breathing in the medicine and trying to calm down when we meet the entitled mother and her kids. The older one, 10 or 11 maybe, stops and looks at me, probably because my knee looks weird. My eyes are red from crying and he might not know what an asthma inhaler is. The younger kid and my mom continued walking, but stopped when they noticed the brother wasn't with them. They walk over to me and begin talking. Entitled mother, what's going on here? My softball bestie. My friend hurt her knee at practice. Entitled mother, then why isn't she in the hospital? Softball bestie, that's none of your business. Entitled mother humps and entitled kid enters the conversation. Entitled kid, what's that? Points at the inhaler. Me, it's an inhaler. Entitled kid, what? Me, something I use to breathe better. Entitled kid, can I see it? Me, no, I need it. Entitled kid, but I want it. Innocent kid, it's not yours, entitled kid. Entitled mother, shut up, innocent kid, yes it is. I'm utterly confused at this point and wondering how long it's going to take to get a soda 10 minutes away and get back. Entitled kid, give me my puffer back. Softball bestie, it's not yours. Entitled kid, gimme Entitled mother, kindly give my daughter her favorite toy back or I'll have to call the police. Softball bestie, you're crazy. Entitled mother, how rude. Teenagers have no respect for adults these days. Now, entitled mother grabs the inhaler from my hand. I'm shocked into the point of more tears. I start gasping for breath because I'm terrified she's gonna run off and I won't be able to breathe. Softball bestie, what the F do you think you're doing? Entitled mother, taking my daughter's toy back from annoying teenagers. At this point, my dad runs up. Come on, original poster. Softball bestie, Mr. My dad, this crazy B word stole original poster's inhaler. My dad, please give it back. Entitled mother, it's not hers, it belongs to entitled kid. She's too old to have asthma anyway. Now, my dad is not a small guy. He's 6'6" and broad. He used to be an Air Force officer and looks pretty scary sometimes. My dad, you are one of the stupidest people I have ever met. Entitled mother, leave us alone. Your brat daughter and her friends stole my daughter's favorite toy. We should press charges. Innocent child, that's not true. You took it. It's not a toy. My dad, just give it back so we can go. Original poster's injured. Entitled mother, no she's not. She's just being dramatic. My dad, you B word. Give it back now. Entitled mother, stop being racist and sexist. You men think you own everything. I'm white. Her family is white. How is that racist? Entitled mother and my dad start yelling and arguing and I'm gasping for breath still. I hadn't been paying attention to innocent child and I hadn't seen him for a while, but now stood in front of me. Innocent child, here you go. This little angel took my inhaler from his little sister and was handing it to me. I was so grateful I hugged the kid after getting my breathing back to normal. Entitled mother, stop assaulting my son. I'm so sick of this lady that I just stare. Entitled kid is crying, entitled mother is furious, and innocent child just says, run. Softball bestie motions to my dad to pick me up and go, so that's what we do. Entitled child tries to hold back his mom, which surprisingly worked because this kid was pretty tall and his mom was pretty small. And my football coach came out to help him. We made it to the walk-in clinic and they popped my knee back in. Currently, we still don't know what's wrong with it and we're going for an MRI tomorrow. You know, entitled people are always annoying, but when they're at their worst is in a medical emergency situation. You apparently know what asthma is to have said that she's too old to have it. Meaning, I would think you know what an inhaler is. Meaning, I would think you know that she needs it to breathe. To call it a toy and say it belonged to your kid and she stole it and you want it back? What? Honestly, I want to give you guys some insightful feedback on a lot of this stuff. And you know, sometimes I like to think I do a good job, but then there's times like this where all I can do is facepalm. This woman doesn't realize the situation she's causing. This girl's already injured, she's having a panic attack, and you take her inhaler away and start yelling in front of her about all this other stuff and making it even worse and oh my god, and it's all about you and your kid. Just stop. Just go to learn how to be a generally good member of society, because apparently you missed that somewhere along the way. Your kid understands. I don't understand how you don't. Okay. Controlling my emotions a little bit more. All I can say is thank you to the kid for standing up to his mother. You really have no idea what you giving her back that inhaler was doing for her. The amount of relief she felt when you gave it back, I'm sure was completely overwhelming. Sadly, it seems like this kid is probably going to have to be cleaning up his mother's messes for quite a while. Hopefully next time it doesn't involve someone who's in a medical emergency. My mom hit someone with her car and ran, and I really want to call the police. Mom was driving me to school this week. She was taking a turn and obviously wasn't looking because she took the turn wide and hit a kid from school who was riding to the bike tracks. He was in the other lane that goes the other way. Our car went over him and I heard him yell out. I don't know him, but he's in a different year than me. After that happened, my mom just kept driving. I told her we need to call the police or ambulance or something. My mom just kept saying that he swerved and hit her and that we don't call the police if we did nothing wrong. She just told me to keep quiet and knows I'll do the right thing. I saw a photo on Instagram of him in the hospital, and he's all bruised and looks rough as heck. I've just been feeling really bad, and it's like I can't eat and feel like I'm throwing up. It's like mom did something really wrong, and it feels really bad to not say anything. I wasn't even allowed to tell dad about it, but him and mom are divorced, and I'm not allowed to tell him a lot of things. If I tell someone, mom will probably get arrested, and then it'll be my fault. I don't know, and want to stop feeling so bad. Do I tell him my mom or not? Oh no. Oh, this is such a bad situation to be in. For context, in the title of the post, it does say that the kid is a 14-year-old male. So he's a little older and has some brains about him to at least understand that yes, his mom did something very wrong. But obviously at the same time, I understand the obligation to want to protect your mother. I'm sure that when it happened, it was just a genuine accident. I don't think she intentionally meant to hit the kid by any means. And I understand the immediate thought of self-preservation to get out of there and drive away as quickly as possible. There are a lot of things that are attached to a situation like this that she doesn't want to get involved in, and I understand that. Maybe they can't afford a lawyer or medical bills or anything like that, but I can't justify driving away like that. Not when you hit a kid. You have to call someone, you have to make sure they're taken care of. All I can say is I'm glad at least he was taken care of and was okay. Generally speaking, I know he's in the hospital, but at least he's not dead. My sister-in-law's useless boyfriend thinks they should just get to stay with us for free. This is a story about my sister-in-law and her useless boyfriend. My sister-in-law is my wife's sister and is a terrific person. Useless husband is decidedly not. Here on Reddit, he's the gift that keeps on giving. Like chlamydia. In April of 2020, having lost their jobs due to COVID, they moved in with us rent-free until they got back on their feet. We're happy to have sister-in-law. She's absolutely terrific, pitching in around the house, spending time with the family, and being my wife's best friend. This is decidedly not true of useless boyfriend. He locks himself in their room playing video games all day long. He complains about the food, only recently agreed to chip in for higher speed internet, which he kept demanding we pay for, and otherwise makes it clear how much of an imposition it is for him to live in our home rent-free. Sister-in-law was finally able to get a full-time job last month. Their finances are still a mess, but things are improving, and she said they'd move out in the spring. Honestly, we're all going to miss her. Useless boyfriend? The best I can say is I don't care if the door hits him on the way out or not, just as long as he's on the other side of it. Our oldest son is 23 and moved about 30 minutes away back in fall of 2019, so he could be close to his work. Thankfully, he's remained employed full-time despite COVID. In the fall of 2020, he renewed his lease for 1 year in a nice but small studio apartment. Recently, a fantastic job opportunity arose for our son. He's moving much further away, which is sad, but it's a great opportunity and we're happy for him. The largest problem for him is his lease, which still has 10 months to go. He spoke with his landlord, who's a good guy. The landlord said he'd be willing to let our son out of the lease ordinarily, but with COVID, he has several tenants who haven't paid rent for a while and he can't afford another apartment generating no income. He agreed that he would let our son out of the lease the moment he could rent the apartment to someone else. But the market has been really slow and he doesn't know how long that would take. I don't blame the landlord a bit, he's being fair. Looking to get out of the lease sooner, our son suggested sister-in-law and useless boyfriend move in. He would move out February 1st, but pay for February and March. They would pick up the rent in April. This would give them 2 more months to get their finances in order, and he'd only be out 2 months' rent. And as an added bonus, it's closer to sister-in-law's job and would cut 10 minutes off her daily commute. Everybody's happy, right? Everybody except useless boyfriend, that is. Looking at the apartment, he complained it was too small. He complained they'd have to pay for food and utilities. You know, the things he enjoys for free because my wife and I are paying now. He complained he'd have to set up his computer in the living room instead of the bedroom. Then he dropped this little nugget.
With utilities, it's going to be higher. You should pay all our rent. We're doing you a favor.
My son assumed he misheard him and restated his offer. He'd pay for February and March. They'd assume payments in April. Nope. Not good enough. To useless boyfriend's way of thinking, our son should pay their rent for the remainder of the lease, 10 months, and let them live there rent-free. Sister-in-law was mortified at useless boyfriend for trying to take advantage of our son, her nephew, that way. After months and months of listening to him complain about his suffering while others paid for everything, she finally had enough. Useless boyfriend, I like this place, so I'm moving in, but you're not. When we get home, you're packing your stuff and I'm driving you to your mother's. No more free rides, we're done. Our son called with the happy news on multiple fronts while they drove home. Instead of 30 minutes, they took an hour to get home and we were a little concerned. We called and she confirmed everything was okay. So we assembled the moving boxes for him so he could start packing right away. Why postpone the party? He walked in the door to find everything he needed to pack up. Apparently on their ride back, useless boyfriend was whining and complaining about their breakup. They stopped to talk for a bit, at which point he said something, sister-in-law won't say what, that creeped her out. And she asked me to drive him to his mother's, which I was more than pleased to do. We drove about an hour to his mother's place without speaking. I helped him carry his stuff to the porch, and out of politeness, I extended him a hand and wished him luck. He stared at me and didn't say a word. There was no, thanks for letting me live with you for free for almost a year, or tell sister-in-law I'm sorry. He just stared, like the petulant child he is. Sister-in-law is doing really well. We're going to miss her moving away, and especially our son moving quite a distance away. But useless boyfriend, we'll miss him about as much as we will last week's recycling. At least the recycling can be turned into something useful. What a jerk, right? Yeah, that's one word you can use for him. I feel like your useless boyfriend summary was actually very accurate. It literally just sounds like he wanted a free ride while he sat around and played video games. And even after they left, he would have been expecting your sister-in-law to just continue to support him forever. It doesn't sound like he was doing anything to find a job or contribute in any way around the house. Literally just a waste of skin. I'm all for enjoying your free time and playing video games and doing what you want with it, but you still have other obligations, especially when you're living for free in someone else's house with your girlfriend. You think you would want to show that you can support her and get things going and try and get out of there and find your own place. Regardless, he's out of the picture now. It sounds like sister-in-law is doing really well, and I'm glad to hear that. Let him be his mother's problem from now on. It sounds like that's where he might be happiest. This guy demands I move 30 bags of concrete for him. He doesn't know I don't work here. So I live in Australia, and we have a supply chain of hardware stores here called Bunnings Warehouse. Picture a hardware store for everyone, both tradesmen and your average Joe. I was a teenager at the time and I was dressed in work clothes. I was working for a carpenter at the time. Steel cap boots, work pants, the whole deal. The most important thing about all this is my work shirt. My company uses a black button-up shirt, short sleeves and collared. My company also had our logos plastered all over these things. For privacy reasons, I can't show you the logos, but these are the base shirts. bags. Now, the people that work at this hardware store, they wear red polo shirts with green writing, the logo for their company. Now, I was riding shotgun with my boss. He had gone into the store while I was in the timber yard collecting some bags of concrete for the footings we were about to put in. I was moving some of the bags one at a time to my boss's work truck. These bags aren't overwhelmingly heavy, about 20 kilograms, or 45 pounds, but I was only moving one at a time. The walk wasn't far, and this was at the start of the day. Last thing I wanted to do was injure myself before the real work has even started. I was on my 6th bag out of 13 when this man came up to me. He was your average do-it-yourselfer. Certainly not a tradesman, just your average guy. 50s, balding, and wanted to show off that they could successfully screw together a garden shed. He was just staring at the pile of concrete bags. For context, there are several different kinds of concrete for different purposes: rapid set, mortar, cement, etc. He then asked me what concrete he should use to put in some fence posts. I told him he'd be looking at the rapid set. It would suit his needs perfectly. Considering he needed to ask what kind of concrete, I imagined that he hadn't actually done any sort of work like this before. So I gave him the lowdown. Dig your hole, pour the bag directly into the hole, wet it with your hose, dome it off. Pretty simple. So he said thanks, no issues here. So I grabbed my next bag and began to take it to the truck. Here's where the fun begins.
What? Where are you going?
He asks. Now, I'm quite confused at this point in time, and then I respond with, oh, I'm going to put these bags on the back of that truck. Is that a problem? He replies with,
Mate, my car isn't over there. I'm the white Camry over there.
It's always the dudes in the white Camry at Bunnings. Any tradesman who goes to Bunnings knows exactly the guy I'm talking about. Anyways, I stand there trying to figure out what's going on.
Well?
He asks. I figure out that he thinks I work there. Oh, sorry mate, I don't work here. I'm getting concrete for my job and I'm on a tight schedule. Sorry. Now, usually if I didn't have to be somewhere, I would have given anyone a hand. Moving these bags suck, but he doesn't seem to believe me.
What? Look at you. Of course you work here. You got the right clothes and everything.
I try to reply, and he doesn't want to hear any of it. He goes off and says as he's walking away,
You better have all 30 bags on my car before I get back.
Step on it. Well, my dear friend, be careful what you wish for. It didn't matter that I was busy. This was the new priority. Cue the malicious compliance part of my story. His exact words were, you better have all 30 bags on my car before I get back. His car had a box trailer. I knew exactly what he meant, but no, sir. I tried to tell you otherwise, but you did not listen. I needed to move, so I started moving the bags, 2 at a time. I placed them all over his car, 12 on the bonnet, 6 on the trunk, and the rest perfectly layering the roof. I see him walk out. He sees his car, and this man's jaw hits the floor. He nearly had a heart attack.
My car! What have you done to my car?
I had a grin from ear to ear. I put all 30 bags on your car, just like you asked. I was giggling like a toddler. Now, after much screaming, I told him to can it and he could move it himself. I was late as it was and my boss was getting impatient. However, he watched this all and was laughing too. Sorry mate, I have to go to my actual job now, so you're gonna have to move these yourself. He was not happy, but hey, at least the bags were now significantly closer to his car. He sucked it up and began to move them. I was walking back to my car when I heard him yell. The thing about these bags of concrete is, if you don't support them underneath and just grab them from the sides, they tend to split, clean down the middle, dumping all the contents of the bag in a messy pile directly underneath the bag. He had split a bag clean down the middle whilst trying to take it off the roof. This thing spilled its contents all over the roof and windshield of his car, and it was the funniest thing to happen yet. He got the job done eventually, but not before splitting 3 more bags. His car was covered in concrete dust. I left him there, car covered in concrete, whilst he admitted defeat. This one's on you, Camry guy. This one's on you. Was I a jerk though? I have to admit, I find this one highly entertaining. Were you a jerk? A little bit, yeah. You could have just walked away. He would have never known and gone inside to complain about some guy who didn't even end up working there. You, however, chose the petty option, but I 100% respect that in this case. Having worked in retail and had people talk to me like this and unfortunately having to comply, I commend you, sir, for doing something a lot of retail workers really wish they could do. But I mean, this guy does kind of get what's coming to him, I guess, considering his sense of entitlement. The absolute icing on the cake is that the bag split and he had a whole mess to deal with, along with having to go back and probably buy 3 more bags because he messed those ones up. This is why I say you have to listen when people are talking back to you. You can't just bark orders at someone and expect them to comply. In this case, he did, just not quite the way you wanted him to. Entitled mother steals my handicap parking spot cause she's pregnant and deserves it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Why do women with kids feel so entitled just because they have kids? I, a female 30-year-old, have an autoimmune arthritis condition. I walk with a cane. On my bad days, I can barely walk at all. I have a handicap placard for those days. I had to go grocery shopping a while ago, and I was in no condition to be walking a long ways. Not a code red pain day, but definitely up there. If I hadn't been completely out of a few major necessities, I wouldn't have been out at all. When I got there, all the handicap spots were full, but I saw an older gentleman loading his trunk and knew that spot would be available soon. So I pulled up and put on my blinkers and waited. As soon as he was gone, I pulled into the spot, threw up my blue placard, and began hauling myself out of the car. I'm just about ready to close the door when I hear, "Excuse me." I look over and see a teal SUV pulled up behind me. There's this woman in the driver's seat yelling out the open passenger window at me. Entitled mother, "You just took my spot." Me, "What? I was waiting behind the other guy. I didn't see you." Entitled mother, "No, those are handicap spots. They're only for handicap people." I'm literally leaning against my car, cane in hand. I hold up the cane. "I am handicapped, ma'am. I have a permit." Entitled mother scoffs and pulls away. I decide to just forget about her and begin my hobble walk into the store. I got even more frustrated when I saw there were no electric carts available. So I was forced to grab one of the smaller trolleys and walk. Since I have a hard time pushing a cart one-handed and the cart offers some support, I put my cane inside the cart. I was only as far as the produce section when I hear a familiar voice. "Hey, you!" It's the entitled mother. She's pushing one of those big carts that look like cars for kids. She had an infant and a toddler strapped onto the front of the cart, and another 2-year-old or so standing bouncing in the cart, and yet another child holding her hand walking beside her. He looked 5-ish. I'm bad at telling ages. She's also very pregnant. She stalks up to me with this peeved off expression. You need to learn to be more respectful. I was waiting for that parking spot and you stole it." She is talking/yelling over her kids who are all fussing loudly. Me, "Lady, I didn't see you waiting for that spot. If you were, I apologize." Entitled mother, "I was waiting. I needed a spot close to the entrance. Because of you, I had to park all the way towards the back." Me, "Well, I said I was sorry." I look over her and her brood real quick. Besides, that was a handicap spot. You can only park there with a permit. Are one of your kids handicapped? Entitled mother, "No, the spot was for me. I'm pregnant." Me, "Lady, you can't use disabled parking just because you're pregnant. Not unless you have some complications that affect your mobility." Entitled mother, "No, you can use them if you're pregnant too. I always use them." Me, "I don't think that's how it's supposed to work, ma'am. You're lucky you haven't gotten a ticket for not having a permit displayed." Entitled mother huffs, "Well, you shouldn't be using it. You're not pregnant and you clearly don't have kids." Me, "No, I'm not pregnant, but I am disabled." This whole conversation I've been leaning on my cart for support. I pull my cane out for her to see. I can barely walk 10 feet without pain. That's why I have a handicap permit. Entitled mother, "That's no excuse. You can't be in that much pain. I've been up all night with my colicky baby and couldn't keep anything down because of morning sickness. I'm exhausted. My feet are killing me. You don't know what it's like wrangling 4 kids while pregnant. I clearly needed that spot more than you did." I am more than done with this whole argument at this point. "Look, lady, I'm in pain, I'm tired, and I just want to finish my shopping so I can go home and try to work up the will to make dinner tonight. I didn't see you waiting for the parking spot, and you shouldn't be using it without a permit anyway. Good day." I tried walking away. Entitled mother, "You selfish brat, you don't know what tired is. I'm going to report you to store security. I'll get them to tow your car." Me, "Lady, call security if you want. I'm allowed to park there. I didn't choose to become disabled, but you chose to have kids. It's not my fault you're tired and run down and can't be bothered to walk the extra 200 feet to the door. It's not my fault you chose to let some guy finish inside you. You deal with your life. I'll deal with mine." I hobbled off to try try to finish my shopping, ignoring her parting comments. That fight gave me just enough adrenaline to get through my trip without falling apart. I had an assistant help load my vehicle, which was undisturbed where I'd parked it. I was still peeved when I got home, but it was nothing a good long soak in the tub couldn't fix. I still hope she gets ticketed for parking in the handicap spots, but as long as I never see her again, I'll be happy. I don't need to deal with jerks like that. Wow, the sense of entitlement for some people, right? Our original poster is very clearly disabled at first look and has the proper parking permit. Yet our entitled mother of this story seems to still think that she has more right to it. Those spots are literally there for handicapped people. I understand that sometimes there are spots for expecting mothers or something like that, and obviously we didn't have that available in this case. So you have to forfeit that spot to a person who's actually disabled. I'm sorry, that's just the way it goes. Yes, it sucks that you have to deal with all of this, but with all due respect, where's the husband in this situation? This woman's very pregnant and trying to juggle 4 kids at the same time while doing the shopping. Clearly, she needs some help. I'm sure she's angry about a whole bunch of other things entirely, and this lady unfortunately just caught some of the brunt of it. She complains about how she can't sleep and has morning sickness and her feet hurt and all these things. And all of that adding up is totally understandable for why you might get irritated. I just feel you're really pointing it in the wrong direction on this one. I hope she gets some of the support she needs from friends and family to maybe help make her life a little easier. She's clearly having a hard time. For our original poster, I feel she handled this the best way she could have. The comment was a little underhanded, perhaps, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that maybe the same thing had crossed my mind. My coworker's stupidity almost got both of us arrested. A few years ago, I was a driver trainer for a large trucking company. Basically, my job was to take newly minted truck drivers and teach them how to handle themselves in the real world. Sometimes it was easy, other times it was like teaching a fish to play tennis. One of my students, who we'll call Kevin for this story, was so dense he made a lead brick seem like a feather pillow. Not because of his driving, but because he almost got himself and me arrested. Here's the story. Kevin was on my truck for about 3 weeks. He wasn't the worst student I had. Another Kevin has that honor, but he was far from the best. At week 2, we end up stuck in Salt Lake City, Utah after delivering a load. It was a slow time of year and Salt Lake City had always been a sparse area for outgoing loads, so I expected to have to wait to leave out. Not a big deal, I needed the downtime. Kevin, from out of nowhere, started to seem anxious about something. When I ask him why he's so tense, he tells me he needs to get his license changed to his home state. He lived in Louisiana, but his license was from Iowa. The company used a loophole in the Iowa state law by granting temporary residency to students to get them a license. After the license was issued, they had 30 days to get it switched to their home state. Not a major issue since management knew the drill and would get us to a student's home state in plenty of time.
Dude,
Kevin asked,
when can we go to Louisiana? I need to get my license changed.
He asked this every day for a week, but it wasn't until we were stuck in Salt Lake City that this really seemed to bug him. Look, I've told dispatch you need to get home. They'll work it out. Just relax. He didn't. After 3 days, we finally get to leave Salt Lake City bound for Chicago. It takes a few days and the entire trip I can tell he's getting more and more nervous. Eventually, he can't talk about anything else except how he needs to get home. He was getting pretty annoying. We make our delivery in Chicago and get another going to Laredo, Texas. Normally, we would have gone through Houston, Texas, but this happened during the massive floods, and I knew going that way would be a bad idea. Fortunately, I found a way that would avoid the flooding and get Kevin to his hometown. Better still, we would have enough time for him to get a ride to the DMV, get his license changed, and still make delivery in plenty of time. Win-win-win. And Kevin finally seemed relieved. We get to Kevin's hometown on a Sunday afternoon. As he gets ready to leave, I tell him, first thing in the morning, get your butt to the DMV, get your license taken care of, and get back here pronto so we can get going. He says okay and leaves with his girlfriend while I enjoy some time to myself. The next morning, I give Kevin until 10 a.m. before I start getting impatient. I texted him asking where he was and got no reply. I text again, and again, no answer. I call, no answer. I tell dispatch, who's asking me when we'll get moving, that Kevin has disappeared. He was supposed to get his license changed over, but I haven't heard from him all day. Dispatch tries to call him, and they don't have any better luck. Apparently, Kevin has disappeared. By late afternoon, I start getting the feeling that this little weasel has bailed on me and wasted my time. This was a common occurrence for new drivers. I tell dispatch that I'll give him until morning to reach out. If he doesn't, I'll continue on to Laredo on my own. There was still plenty of time and dispatch agreed. Morning came and Kevin was still AWOL, and I was out of patience. I send him one more text telling him I'm leaving without him and head out. I drive for several hours before taking a mandatory break and check my messages. To my surprise, Kevin reached out.
Hey man, my PO found out I took a job driving and was peeved that I left Louisiana. She told me to get back as soon as possible or she'd have me listed as a fugitive. I called her yesterday, but she's out of town and told me to wait till she gets back on Wednesday.
I'm completely shocked. PO? As in a parole officer? Kevin, are you telling me you're on parole and leaving the state without permission?
Yeah, I was in jail for selling. I got paroled for 2 years. I didn't think it would be a big deal since I was working.
Dude, you violated your parole. You'll be lucky if you don't end up back in jail.
Well, my PO says she wants to talk about it Wednesday.
Yeah, I imagine so. You better get in touch with dispatch and let them know so they can work something out. I ended the conversation and continue on to Laredo. I deliver the load and pick up another headed to Atlanta, Georgia. Thursday, I call Kevin to find out what the deal was. He tells me that his PO gave him the okay to keep working. I assume you have some kind of official document that says that, I tell him.
No, she didn't give me one.
Then you better get one, because there's no way I'm leaving the state with you unless I have something from the state saying it's okay.
Why?
Because, stupid, if I carry you across state lines knowing you're violating parole, that makes me an accessory to a felony. I'm not going to jail for your stupidity.
Oh, okay, I'll ask her.
I tell Kevin when and where to meet me. I tell him that if he disappears again, I'm not coming back for him. He says he understands. I get to the location when I said I would, and he's nowhere to be seen. I text, no answer. By this point, my patience for this clown is completely gone. I tell dispatch I don't trust this guy's word and I'm not taking a chance on him lying to me. I leave out again and head for Atlanta. Kevin does reach out 6 hours later and wants to know if I'll come back for him. I tell him that he's lied 3 times and acted so shady that I can't trust him to do the right thing. If he wants to finish his training, he can sort something out with management, but there's no way that he will ever see me again. Fast forward a few months, I found out from dispatch that Kevin's PO had not given him permission to leave the state again. Apparently, I made the right call by leaving him there. Fortunately, they weren't interested in prosecuting me. I have no idea what happened to Kevin, but I imagine he did something else that was stupid and landed back in prison. As for me, I took a break from training after the whole debacle. This Kevin wasn't the only one I had during my time as a trainer, and he definitely wasn't the worst. But for dragging me into his parole violation, he is firmly in the top 10. What a jerk. Okay, so this guy's just honestly a doofus, I think. I don't know if he's really being a jerk, it just sounds like he's completely clueless. I'm maybe starting to see how he ended up in prison in the first place. I imagine this guy just wandering through life, going with the flow, and getting himself into all kinds of trouble. Good for our original poster though for seeing the red flags and taking the appropriate action. His decisions made sure that he didn't end up in any trouble along with the Kevin. Goes to show if you feel like something's just not quite right, sometimes you need to act on that instinct. I know our poster is glad they did. Entitled family assures me they're in the right place. So I worked a while back at a theme park. This theme park had a ride where you go up in the sky and soar over sights of the world. Anywho, I was the lead that day and it had been a rough day for the ride. We maybe had an hour of actual operation throughout the 8 hours of park open so far. At the moment, we'd been closed for the last 6 hours. The line was closed, doors shut, and no wait time was posted. The exit for the ride is a long corridor where the 2 theaters meet and they exit up a ramp. Unfortunately, that ramp is wide open to anyone that feels like wandering back down. This happened quite often during operation, usually a group saying they had to leave their spot in line or they were trying to meet up with family. That day, as I'm walking out of the broken theater, I happened to run into a family of 4 who were just kind of hanging out in the exit. Clearly shouldn't be down there right now. So I approached them. Hey guys, can I help you with anything? Guest.
Yeah, we're just trying to get back in line with Grandma. She's holding our spot for us after we went to the bathroom.
Me. That's highly unlikely since we're closed. Guest.
No, she's down here waiting for us.
Me. Sorry guys, I'm gonna ask you to head out the exit. Guest immediately changes mood. Guest.
Listen here, you little worm. We've been waiting in line for hours for this ride. You will bring us to the line now.
Me. Oh yeah? Sure, let's go. I bring them down through the back entrance into the grouping area. Open the door to the load area with the TVs off, sound off, lights dim. Clearly not how it's supposed to look to guess. The man walks through, practically shoulder checking me as he goes through. Me. Go ahead and find your grandma. Guest is clearly realizing his stupidity. Me. Yeah, we've been closed for 6 hours. Bye. Guest storms out, bright red in the face. What a jerk. I love when people think that they can lie to the people that work there and get away with it. Like they're not aware of what the situation typically is in their workplace. And to so belligerently stick to it. I love how he said he's been waiting in line for hours. I hope he has been standing there for 6 hours just to have that happen and him look like a doofus. Lady, just use the next bathroom stall over. I'm working on schoolwork in my university's building with the Starbucks in it, and suddenly nature called. I go into the bathroom and close and lock the stall and sit down to poop. I finish quickly and notice someone walk to my stall door and start tugging at it. I think, okay, she'll leave when she realizes it's locked. But no, she keeps pulling the door handle till the thing pops open. It didn't have the best lock, but still you would have to pull pretty hard. I tell her, I'll be out in a minute as I stare at her with my pants around my ankles about to wipe. She quickly apologizes and goes into the stall beside me. I'm not usually this ballsy, but that was just ridiculous. This one's kind of just a funny story, honestly. I don't know if we really have a jerk on this one. This seems like another case of cluelessness. Maybe a little bit of urgency for having to go to the bathroom. But yeah, when you pull on the first stall door and it's not budging, try the next one over instead of forcing that one open. There's probably someone in there. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in a public bathroom and someone tries my stall door, I don't immediately yell out and say, hey, someone's in here. You assume that because it's locked, they will understand someone is in there. You're in a vulnerable situation and don't exactly want to be having a conversation with a stranger through the door. This lady just needs some common sense. My sister was less than thrilled with my response to her new pregnancy. I, 18-year-old female, have a sister, 38-year-old female, who we'll call Kay for privacy reasons. Kay has 4 children with her husband, 3-year-old girl, 8-year-old girl, 2-year-old girl, and 11-year-old girl. Kay is a stay-at-home mom, and her husband works in air conditioning. Kay and her husband came over with their kids on his time off to tell us something. She said that they're pregnant with their 5th child. My mom was overjoyed, and I wasn't really paying attention. I was focusing on the TV. Then my sister says, so what do you think about the news? I said, cool, awesome. Then my sister says, just cool? You don't seem that excited for me. So I said, well, what do you want me to do? Jump up and down and scream my head off? I can see if this was like your first child that you were expecting, like a first-time mother moment. You've got 4 kids, and on your 5th pregnancy, by this time you get used to it. Was this baby really hard to conceive? Like, was it hard to get pregnant? And Kay just said, no, it just happened. I took the test a week ago. And I said, okay, then so at a certain point after, say, number 3, people's reaction is not going to be that enthusiastic as if you were expecting your first. Kay said, I thought you'd be happy for me. So I said, well, I am, but it's not that exciting for me since you've been pregnant before. She got mad and left with her husband and kids and didn't stay around for dinner. My mom thinks I should apologize to Kay for not being excited about her pregnancy announcement. So you tell me, am I the jerk? Yeah, this one's a little bit of both ways, I feel. You have to put out a little bit of excitement at least, for your sister's sake. She's going through a lot, she's newly pregnant, and she wants to know everyone else is happy about it too. That being said, I do agree that by the 5th child, it's not going to be nearly the level of excitement you got with the first one. And I think that's totally fair. So, I don't know. For this one, I want to say neither one is really being a jerk. It's just kind of an awkward interaction. Karen causes a ski crash with skiing coach and blames the coach. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Quite a few years ago, I worked as a ski school supervisor at a mountain resort. One day, early in the season, it's slow, so I decide to take a run with one of my coworkers. Since I've been on my skis a lot, I opt to grab my snowboard for this particular jaunt. This is important later. So me and my buddy are out and about for a couple of runs, and it's time to head back in to check for lessons. We're down off the main mountain and just cruising along an easy green run that leads back to the base area. Like I said, it's a slow day, so there's nobody around. Or so I think. I'm making regular smooth turns on my board when out of nowhere I hear a woman from behind me screech,
Get out of the way! Get out of the way!
Before I can even flinch, I feel something hit the tail of my board. I get spun around and go down kind of hard. For a moment, the red rage light blinks in my head, but I think, okay, we're in a beginner area, she might not have had control. It was an accident, be cool. I pull myself up off the snow and calm myself down. I look down the hill and there are 2 Karens standing about 50 yards downhill. Obviously, one of them was the one that hit me. Cool, they've stopped to make sure I'm okay and apologize. I slide down to them and open my mouth to check if they're okay. Before I can even get one word out of my mouth, Karen 1 starts screaming at me.
What the F do you think you're doing? You could have killed me. You effing snowboarders are a menace. You don't belong on the mountain.
And on it goes. Screaming at me, cursing at me, calling me all sorts of names. One important note, there are a set of rules that govern skiing. One of them is that skiers and riders ahead of you have the right of way. Just like driving, if you hit someone from behind while skiing, you're 100% at fault. I try to interrupt politely to tell her this, but Karen is having none of it. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, F you, Karen. I'm tearing you a new one once you're finished yelling. I look over at my buddy for backup and suddenly my rage-filled brain realizes something. My buddy's in full uniform. I look down, black pants, blue and gray jacket with the resort logo on front and back, bright shiny gold name tag that says supervisor under my name, and a radio clip to my collar. Yeah, I'm in full uniform too. At this point, I'm dumbfounded. Is this woman seriously screaming and cursing at 2 mountain employees after she just caused a crash? What? Then I get calm and hold out my hand for her to stop. I have no idea why, but Karen stops screaming. I reach up to the radio mic and call Ski Patrol. I ask them to have the patrol director on duty meet me at the base area. It's at this point that it finally dawns on Karen that she messed up. She starts asking why I called patrol and what I'm going to do. I just shrug. She starts saying she doesn't want me following her and to leave her alone. Again, we're almost inside of the base. There's nowhere else to go other than to follow the trail down. She realizes she's stuck and skis down with her friend. Her friend at this point looks mortified, by the way. We get to the base and the patrol director's standing there with another patroller. I give a recap of the events, including some of the graphic things she told me to do to myself and multiple family members. The patrol director rolls his eyes, then pulls out wire cutters. Karen goes wide-eyed and is like,
No, you can't take my ticket. It's a 5-day ticket. We just got here today. This is our vacation.
Tickets are over $75 per day, so we're talking like a $350 ticket this lady has on. The patrol director just shrugs and says, well, ma'am, then you just made a very expensive mistake, and clips the ticket. At that point, my coworker and I make a retreat back to the ski school because we want no part of the fallout. I still can't believe what a jerk she was, though. Yeah, I'm sure she really regrets that one. I feel like when you're on the beginner hill and you're out of control and crash into someone, maybe you shouldn't be blaming them immediately. Also, when you're cussing out a person that works at the place that you're visiting, it's probably not going to end well for you either. Of course, this is a classic Karen move, isn't it? I honestly hope, for her own sake and anyone else who has to deal with her in the future, that this expensive lesson had a lasting effect. This jerk bullied me, broke my nose, and shoved me into a locker. So I stole his friends and cut him off from easy grades. And now he's working a crap job. So I was flicking through Facebook when I remembered something that I did to someone in secondary school. Details are a little hazy, but here it goes. Back in school, I was several things. Awkward and weird in the extreme, bit of a runt, physically weak. Now, I had the fortune to go to one of the grammar schools in the UK. So for the most part, nothing happened. But one person who I do remember sticks out. We'll call him Buttface. Quite possibly the meanest bully I ever had. He was always trying something against me. And as a result, I spent a lot of time in the library or with teachers. After all, I was sick of him constantly trying to trip me, or trying to steal my things, or make fun of me, or most annoyingly of all, trying to copy my work. I took great pride in my success. I tried not to let it show, but every once in a while, I would eventually break down. This persisted for the first 2 years. He always acted alone, perhaps because he was trying to not look like a jerk in front of everyone else. Anyways, after those 2 years, Buttface decides to shove me in a locker. Now, I'm claustrophobic and he knew that. And when I was trying to frantically resist, he left me with a broken nose. I was locked inside and was only let out when a teacher heard my pathetic sobs and pleas for help. He was suspended for a week. I spent some time in the medical room and a week later it was all resolved. Except for the resentment I had. Not cool. The teachers were off the ball and doing nothing to protect me. I wanted this guy to suffer. I eventually got my chance. In mathematics, I was one of the best in the class. One of his friends was sorely struggling. Now, I wasn't the most socially adept person, but I knew my math. When he ended up sitting next to me, I helped him out, gave him pointers. His grades began to improve. He started helping me out with things like art. I didn't really improve much, but we forged an unlikely friendship. Anyhow, the compound effect of this was twofold. Not only had I gained some protection from Buttface, but I had also entered his extended group of friends. And this friend I had made started dragging me along to hang out with them during break periods. Within 6 months, I was friends with all of Buttface's friends. I always acted friendly around Buttface, never brought up anything at all. Buttface's friends were nice guys, treated me real good. I eventually suggested setting up study groups in the library, offered to arrange them. I asked about when everyone was available, and I always had things to do when Buttface was available. How inconvenient. As such, although he was invited, I made sure he wasn't there. Suffice to say, due to us studying together once a week, our grades in our weaker subjects started to individually improve. As for Buttface, he hadn't put much work into his own success. Without his friends to mooch from, his grades started tanking. Suddenly, he was being real nice to me, trying to apologize to me in private so he wouldn't lose face in front of his friends. I told him my answer simply. This is the only exact phrase that I remember. You want to apologize? You apologize to me in front of your friends. This was now 8 months after the locker incident. He told me he would apologize. Okay. Cool. I arranged the study group. This time he could make it, and he gave his apology to me, in front of his friends. I asked if he was doing this just for grades. After all, his friends knew his grades were tanking, and ours were on the rise. Cue my friends flipping out, asking him very pointed questions about what had happened. In that moment, I'd cut off Buttface from his friends and taken them as my own. His former friends were quick to ostracize him. I breezed through the rest of grammar school. We went our separate ways at college, took different subjects, and the group disbanded. Why was I reminded? Despite not talking to any of these guys in almost a decade, I found Buttface on Facebook, and it asked if I knew him. I had a quick look on his profile, very few friends, and working a deadbeat job at 26 as a cashier, and no one from my old study group was a friend of his. I really don't feel bad for that jerk. Yeah, neither do I, really. Sounds like he kind of just got what was coming to him. And I understand there might be some people who think that this was going a little too hard. I mean, it seems like maybe he was a decent guy and for whatever reason was just picking on this one kid. But if that was the case, he would have been able to make more friends afterwards. It really does just seem like maybe he was just an unlikable jerk. And maybe our original poster was doing his new group of friends a favor by outing him as one. Either way, I can't say I feel particularly bad about this one. At the end of the day, you reap what you sow. After I convinced my parents to let my homeless boyfriend stay with us, he cheats on me. When I was 16, I met an older guy. Let's call him Tom, through some friends of mine. He was 21 and had his own apartment. It was like we met and instantly started dating. My parents weren't a huge fan of his, but they are super liberal and believed in letting their kids learn from their own decisions/mistakes. We dated for about 2 years on and off. Tom worked odd jobs but had barely graduated high school and was admittedly not very bright. In fact, he was kind of a jerk. He would call me names or make fun of me in front of his friends or ignore me when I was upset. He also would talk to other girls without trying to hide it. But if I texted a guy from band class, you better believe I heard about it. I liked him because I was dumb and 16, and honestly, to my 16-year-old self, he was really good looking. Well, it seemed Tom had a secret. He had joined the National Guard at 18, and after basic, he got to go home for a short time because his mom was very sick. Well, I guess his mom recovered very quickly, but Tom never let the military know. Instead, he moved addresses and jobs often so the military couldn't find him. Eventually, the janitorial company he worked at found out about this and fired him. So Tom was homeless. Guess who convinced her parents to let him stay with them for a while? That's right, me. So I would get up and go to my senior year of high school, and my 23-year-old boyfriend would sleep all day and hide from my dad and didn't do much but drink. This continued for a month or so, and one day Tom asked me to drive him to a friend's house and said there was a party, and he was going to stay in that town, about a 15-minute drive, just for the night. I had school in the morning and had known these friends for years, so I said, "Bye, honey," and kissed him goodbye as he got out of the car. That is the last time I ever saw him in person. The next day, he was going to continue to drink and stay in the other town with his friends. I was busy, so I just said whatever. It wasn't unlike Tom to drink for 3 days straight, then come home and crash. Well, on the third day, his best friend called me and said, "Original poster, Tom's cheating on you. He met Jane at my house party the other night, and he's been staying at her apartment even though she knows about you. He told me he wasn't going to tell you and to see how long he could get away with it, but I knew I had to tell you because you don't deserve that." I was very upset. He was my first boyfriend and he'd broken my heart. I called Tom and begged him to come back, but he just refused and said he was with Jane now and that I was insane and a head case and that we never even really dated. That's what he was telling that girl and her friends. That I just liked him but never dated him. I called the girl and tried to talk to her, but she just kept calling me pathetic and that I never dated Tom. Like I said, Tom lived with me. Everything he owned was at my parents' house. From snowboards to books to all of his clothes to some furniture. Literally everything this guy owned was at my house. So when I was done being sad, I was mad. I called Tom on the fourth day and told him that all of his things were on my porch and that he could come get them when I was at school. I said he had 1 day to get his stuff or it would be gone. He laughed at me and said he would come get it soon. Well, I came home from school and it was all still there. So I loaded everything up. Cleats, a stereo, clothes, everything a person could own into my car and brought it to Goodwill. Took me and 2 workers about a half hour to unload it all. I think they thought someone died because they didn't ask at all why all a person's stuff would be donated. The next day, Tom calls me and says he's coming today and I better not start any drama because he was bringing Jane to help him get all the stuff. I told him not to bother because I gave it all away. He flipped out and screamed, calling me every name in the book, and had his new girlfriend come there alone to see if I was telling the truth. My dad told her to get the heck off his porch or he'd kick her butt himself. Like I said, liberal. Tom called the police and they laughed at him. They knew he was 23, formerly AWOL from the army, he'd been arrested several times, and staying with his 18-year-old girlfriend. It's a small town. They said if I told him to come get it and he didn't, then it's his fault. My friend that had called me originally was the one who drove Tom to Goodwill. The employees there also laughed at him and wouldn't give him anything. Tom was also super broke, so he couldn't afford to buy anything back. The friend told me later that he had to act concerned while with Tom, but that it was one of the funniest and most pathetic things ever, watching Tom beg Goodwill workers for his things back. Never saw Tom again, but he later impregnated Jane twice, and then she moved in with their kids into a battered women's shelter temporarily, and then gave the kids to her mom, then checked into a psych ward as a direct result of Tom's abuse. Last I heard, he was in jail again. But good riddance. Screw that jerk. Yeah, this guy sounds like a real piece of work. Age difference aside, and trust me, that's the thing that's bothering me most about this story, the way this guy was treating his girlfriend was just absolutely deplorable. She's literally the only thing holding your life together, and apparently you treat her like crap and then ditch her the first chance you get? I really don't understand how the mind of a person like this works. It has to just be an immediate gratification thing, right? He was getting something somewhere else and figured he was just gonna roll with that for the next little while? I have no clue. Either way, sounds like our original poster dodged a huge bullet on this one, and thank God for that. Am I a jerk for not letting my stepdaughter take a shower? My stepdaughter is 15. I'm a 34-year-old female. My stepdaughter lives with us full time because she doesn't like being at her mother's house ever since her mom remarried due to there now being 4 small children running around. I have 2 sons myself, but my kids don't bother her and they live together peacefully, so there's never been any issues here. She has the entire finished attic to herself and she loves the space. Her mother does not pay child support. She refuses, stating, "She chose to move out on her own, so I'm not responsible for her financially." And for whatever reason, my husband doesn't push it. I've told him to several times, but he outright refuses, despite knowing it costs us an extra $900 plus a month, and we can't afford it. The reason why it's so much extra money having her here is because she insists on taking 45 minutes to an hour and a half long showers twice a day, and uses up all of our hot water. She says the scalding water is the only thing that helps her anxiety, and I get that. But at the same time, all the rest of us have gone without showers because she uses all the hot water multiple times. And now I'm forking out hundreds more a month in hot water cost. I'm fed up. I've spoken to her father about it and he says that since it helps her anxiety, I need to leave it alone. But I refuse. I'm the one paying all the bills and have been for 6 months following my husband's knee surgery. And I refuse to spend this much anymore, or go without showering myself, since he outright refuses to bring his ex to court for child support and outright refuses to speak to his daughter about costing me hundreds extra due to her excessive showering. I took matters into my own hands. She was walking to the bathroom with all her stuff last night after already taking an hour-long shower not even 3 hours prior, and I stopped her in her tracks and said she wasn't taking another shower, and she wasn't showering any more than once a day from here on out, and no more than 30 minutes maximum. She just turned and walked away. She didn't come down for dinner either. My husband went up to speak to her later, and apparently she was crying, saying she couldn't calm down because I wouldn't let her shower. He lost it on me and said I was purposely causing his daughter harm. I told him until he either gets child support or until he's healed and goes back to work to pay the extra, then this is how it's gonna be. And if they try going against it, I'll be setting the hot water tank to a timer and going from there. I'm the only one with the key to the hot water heater, so they can't change it. He says I'm being controlling and going to cause resentment. Am I the jerk? Yeah, I would say yeah. To be honest, my main issue here is that we know that this is her source of relieving her anxiety, which must be pretty severe if this is how she has to treat it multiple times a day. But all our original poster seems to be seeing here is the inconvenience that it seems to be causing her. And I get it. It sucks. And to you, it doesn't really make sense why she needs to take 3 showers a day and why they need to be so long. But I feel like instead of just cutting her off and leaving her to feel desperate and even more anxious as a result, that maybe some other options should be explored first. No other external effort was made to help her. All we cared about was taking away the thing that was helping her because it was inconveniencing you, which is a textbook jerk move. Surely if we sat down and had a reasonable conversation with her, she would understand that all of these hot showers do have an impact, and that you're not just being cheap or anything like that. Surely if it came down to 3 hot showers a day or a roof over her head, she would choose a roof. Being able to pay for your mortgage and all those other things is a top priority, and maybe a little bit of time with the family, doing some other kinds of activities would help to relieve her anxiety. I just feel there were many other ways that this situation could be handled, and most of them would result in everyone involved being a lot happier. Also, you can't hold it against your stepdaughter that her stepmother doesn't pay child support. She has no control over that, and it seems almost like you're punishing her for her mother's actions. And if you're not punishing her for her mother's actions, then you're punishing her for your husband's actions, for not going after his ex-wife for the child support that he's supposedly owed. Either way, the person who's suffering in this instance is not the one who caused any of it, and not someone who has any control over any of it either. All around, I just feel like we're being really insensitive about the whole issue. I feel to the other parties involved, and for others looking in, this really does feel like an attempt at maintaining control. Please, take a minute and reconsider how you're handling this. Like I said, there's better ways.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.